call that radio. You call that radio TV. Hello. You call that radio TV.
We are here to tell people that we hear you. One God will not allow us and people of conscience to lose our morale.
You call that radio.
Tucking on my heels, out of sight. Bust off a bar garage. A candle and ties. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening and welcome to You Call That Radio TV featuring Wow Reacts only. It's Texture, aka Bram Gieben. We are live tonight, 100% live. Not a wee bit live. All live. We are live everywhere. We're live in Scotland. We're live in France. We're live in Brazil. Anywhere that's a real place, we are live, and maybe even places that aren't real. This is You Call That Radio TV. If you're watching this on Facebook, then don't. Please go to YouTube. It looks better, it sounds better, and Facebook hates us and is trying to kill us. Or go to Twitch. We're also on the Twitch, which is twitch.tv/You Call That Radio. The show is, of course, powered by our patrons, so if you can support the Patreon, then please do. We'll try to get up to 200 patrons so that we can have an all-day Christmas party, just like the Halloween one, just like the August one. We need more support in order to make that happen, so if you're interested in getting involved, then you want to see that, then get in touch. Become a Patreon. Donate to PayPal. All that good stuff. I think we're going to be talking about some interesting stuff. Texture, who's a former Scottish Slam Poet of the Year award, and then he sort of chucked poetry to focus on his music, which he's always done, sort of dystopian hip-hop, very lyrical, and some amazing collaborations over the years, especially, likes of Asthmatic Astronaut and stuff like that. So we're going to be talking about his career, and we're maybe going to find out tonight about ancient technology. Did ancient technology exist? Are the pyramids caused by ancient technology? What sound waves can we move big rocks with sound waves and stuff like that? So if you've got any opinions about that, let us know in the comments. And let's welcome Bram onto the show. If I just push a button, the right button. No, this is the button, because it's going to tell you what's coming up.
You call that radio. More like a TV show. On almost every night. It's gonna be streaming live. You call that radio. More like a TV show. On almost every night. It's gonna be streaming live. You call that radio.
Bram, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How you doing, Mark?
I'm very well, mate. How's things?
Not bad. You're looking well, man. Who cut your hair for you? Is that Joy's work? It's looking sharp.
No, that was, I didn't get a haircut for about the whole lockdown, and then 2 came along at once because I got one haircut from a friend Deborah, who did it kindly. And the icebox, you might notice it happened during the Scottish Album of the Year music video. And then because I had work as an extra, I was an extra, and the guy that they hired was a short-haired and, let's be honest, a little bit thinner man that they hired from the pictures. So I thought, I've got to get the haircut right. But the haircut was too funky. It was too trendy. It was too, Scottish award-winning Illuminati. So they had to fix it and now it's kind of sort of, it is what it is. It is what it is, man. And also, I feel good because I did Sober October, and I had a drink after Capture Works gig, but then I'm doing Sober November as well so far. Anyway, and that means no smoking as well. What about yourself?
I'm having a beer and a smoke here, so apologies if I lead you down the wrong path tonight, man.
Jammy bastard.
But no, I've been doing pretty well. I've been doing pretty well. I've been out and about, just trying to get fit, which is harder than everybody makes it sound. It's real hard. You got to keep doing it. You know what I mean? But
that's the thing, isn't it? It's like you would think that if you really push yourself one day, you know, just a really good day at the exercise, that should be enough. Not this. You need to do it again the next day and all that stuff.
There's like a choke point
what can he want to do it. You know? What are you doing? I mean, the only thing that I really do health-wise is I like a cycle. So when I can motivate myself, I love it. Once I'm at the house, I could cycle for hours. It's a nice experience. I've been going on my weekly walk.
Nice.
So once a week, I make it at least once a week, just going out into nature, man, and making sure that you do that at least once a week anyway. And what about yourself? How are you keeping fit?
You know what?
Or how are you trying to keep it?
Funnily enough, like the best thing to do in Dumbarton is just fuck off up a big hill. And there's a big hill right by my house, so I just go up it every second day as fast as I can. And it was real slow at first, and I was like, you know, having to stop halfway and have a little rest and stuff. But now I can go up it pretty fast, so that's been working. But I mean, funnily enough, going up into the forest every day, particularly over the summer, and seeing it as it turned from summer into autumn, was really one of the reasons that I wrote the tracks that became Forest Gods, which was one of the recent EPs. It's a really strange experience to be a 40-year-old guy who's like kind of never exercised, and then to be in the middle of a forest with light shining through the leaves and kind of like off your nut on endorphins. Do you know what I mean? Like really, really rushing on adrenaline and endorphins, and being in that state. I don't know. A couple of years ago, I got into meditation, and still trying to do that every day as well if I can. And funnily enough, I think, you know, going out and exhausting yourself in the middle of a forest is very akin to something like meditation, or certainly it is for me. So yeah, I found it a weirdly spiritual experience going to the forest for a very non-spiritual person generally. I found it very connecting to the whole universe, and it really kind of honestly enriched my life force a little bit. So it was good to be able to put some of that positive energy into some tracks, you know.
That's amazing, man. So was it a conscious effort to try and write something positive, or is it just the way it happened?
It's absolutely just the way it happened, and I think it started actually because I had my phone with me, obviously, and I was listening to tunes, and I'd stop and just take a picture of a really awesome tree. There's some really incredible trees up in Dumbarton. Like the forest where I go is really, really old, and it's next to an old manor house that I think was once used as a sanatorium, but the grounds are all tumbling down. So there's lots of like really super old trees growing through crumbling brickwork, or trees that have just been left to kind of grow wild for 100 years, 200 years, who knows. So I was taking pictures of those and then kind of putting them in an image app and just making them symmetrical. And that whole EP started off just by how much those looked like weird, fucked up gods, like you might, I don't know, find it in a Neil Gaiman comic or something like that.
Is what is the plan for the? I don't know if you can talk about it, but for the album, is it? Are you just going to? You coming with the EPs and it's all building up to a big finale, or is the album a separate entity?
It's kind of a bit of both, man. Like we've actually been working. I've been working on an album with Asmat Castro since about 2018, but for various reasons, that some of that period was quite turbulent for me. So it's taken a while to get the songs together, and they've actually come from a place of kind of dealing with that turbulence in a way. So it's only in the last like 6 to 8 months that they've properly started to come together, although they've been written for a while. But the job of production that Asmat Castro has done on these is really incredible. Like I think what we have here is a collection of songs, you know, as much as it's got bars and it's got like diss tracks and kind of like brag rap and stuff that I've not done a lot of before. That's very hip hop. It's also got choruses and song structure and themes, and I think you know, he's matched that with the music, which has these beautiful structures and changes of feel halfway through, or anyway, we're really proud of it. So I think as with everything probably that everyone's working on, coronavirus has delayed things a little bit. So there is going to be a little bit of a delay releasing the album on This Is Not Pop. So that's why I decided to make the EPs. But also just like I've been crazy productive. I think I've written 15 tracks this year and recorded 20, which is an insane work rate. So I'm sitting on lots and lots of stuff, and the album is basically represents 13 tracks of that, and it's going to be the only two that you'll have heard before will be Robocop and 3DI, which we actually decided to put on the album just because they were kind of an exclusive with a T-shirt. This specific T-shirt still available at my Bandcamp.
That is available, yeah.
Punting and stuff, but yeah, we decided to put them on the album because they kind of fit the sound, and Robocop in particular is just like a nice light-hearted finish to an album that's got some quite dark places that it goes to. So apart from that, it's all new material. So we're excited to drop that, but we're also kind of in no hurry. And we really enjoyed making the video for Burnt Trail with Astronomic. So I think what I've done is basically use the T-shirt sales to fund maybe 2, maybe 3 video shoots. And we've got some plans for those. So hopefully we'll get something out before Christmas. But it's very much, depending on how much we can shoot, the availability of people, that kind of stuff.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm excited to put it out.
That's a great point about T-shirt sales going straight back into the art, and then without the T-shirt sales you can't be doing music videos. So that just shows everyone how important. I'm wearing a T-shirt, a Twist X T-shirt. They've got a new one, Tory Cunts T-shirt that's out this week, and a new
that's awesome tee. Yep.
Live album. That was Mal that did this one. And the Tory Cunts one, I'm not 100% sure actually. I remember we had a conversation about the design, but that live album's coming out. It's actually live from Capture Works, the You Call That radio show, which is good. It's been repurposed as a live album, which is amazing. So I'm hoping that maybe more of the acts involved in the live shows are going to do that. And also for anyone who ordered a Utopia t-shirt, I know Bram, you're one of them. They are getting made as we speak, so that should be the next couple of days they'll be getting sent out. And I've actually got someone.
I'm too big for my XL now. I need a 2XL rather.
yeah, mate. I've been promoted to one size more as well, and I suppose just sitting about and eating. I suppose another thing is just generally being involved in music. You're even just running I was going to say festivals, but even just running a gig, you're constantly running up and down stairs, grabbing people, smoking.
And just concentration as well burns calories, man. You've got your organs and a heck of a lot of stuff. So
I think I've put on. I think most people have put on a bit of weight. Apart from I'm sure there's some people that have just went into Keep Fit zone. There's been people just smashing it.
You've got to do it. You've got to maintain that beer gut. It's the way to do it. But no, I mean, with the T-shirts, I think that's a really good point. The best thing that you can do to support an artist is buy their merch, because nobody's going to make money out of streaming. There's some people in Scottish hip hop doing incredible numbers right now, and I just hope that their payday comes, because I think that's really where your margin is.
Gasp just got $500,000 today.
Yeah, that's crazy, and he deserves
sit
that.
down for a song called "Sit Down Your Mo's a Bin Man."
But imagine back in the day, man, if that represented $500,000 album sales, Gasp would be laughing right now, sitting like Scrooge McDuck, on a pile of coins, and that's where he should be. Rightfully, in my opinion.
Scrooge McDuck, pile of coins. Maybe that's a future Gasp album.
I hope
so. You've also got the likes of Shogun. I think his numbers are even more than that, and I think that's where is there anyone else I'm missing here?
Even if you look at the guys, if you look at a lot of those videos on, I think it's 1250. You've got guys like McCroy doing really big numbers, and
I don't think McCroy and Charlotte, I was exactly who I was going to say. Their numbers are phenomenal on YouTube. I don't know if they've made the switch to Spotify yet, or how that would relate. I think obviously both of them would be good to have an album for both of them.
Yeah. I mean, for me, to be honest, I've talked a little bit about it online, but I'm kind of fucking done with social media, with promoting music on there that way, which is a whole discussion that we don't need to get into. But essentially, I think YouTube is where it's at. Like, if you can run a good YouTube channel that provides good content, like you're doing, Mark, or like these guys who do the freestyles do, you'll find an audience for it, you know. And I don't think that they're doing that through sponsored Facebook posts. I think they're doing it through creating engaging content, you know. So yeah, I don't know. For me, this is like the final days of that shit. Like, I think once I'm done with the album, that'll be me stepping away from it, like, big time, you know.
So, I mean, technically, YouTube is kind of a social media.
It is.
Do you know what? It's interesting. I watched
Owned by Google as well. Yeah.
Exactly. They're all bad guys. You know, it's like Twitch. Zuckerberg. Right now, we're on Twitch, which is the guy from Amazon owns most of that. Zuckerberg, Facebook, and then Google and YouTube. So you can't
like
win
five
until
fucking guys, man. Exactly.
And we have tried to. We have got the website. The website's done. I was actually going to launch it the last gig we did, but I thought, why would I want to send people away from a live show I'm doing? So I changed my mind halfway through it, and now I've just decided to just maybe add a few more bits and bobs. But the albums, the website's there, so the future is to maybe just do it as an independent thing. Obviously, you need to get your name out there a lot more. You need a lot more viewers and stuff before you can start doing stuff. And also, it's expensive, man. I didn't realise how expensive it is to actually do that. To just run the show without using any of these guys. But it's the dream. It is doable. It's a wee bit further down the line. But what's that thing? What's the documentary everyone's watching about the social?
Yeah, the one on Netflix. I can't remember.
The one on Netflix.
Social Dilemma. That's it.
The Social Dilemma, and there's a guy on it who's I don't know. He's like a kind of sort of big, sort of hippie looking guy, and he's talks about the algorithm recommending you things, and I found that really weird because he did an interview on Channel 4 called "Why You Should Delete Your Social Media Now."
Oh,
and he always appears on my recommended things on YouTube. So I found that interesting because as YouTube social media,
cyberpunk head, you know.
Do we call? We don't call YouTube social media, do we? Is that its own world?
I think, like, first of all, like, you know, you got the thing I always come back to in terms of, like, you know, should you boycott things? Should you delete your account? There's the thing I always say is there's no ethical consumerism under capitalism. Like, if you're using a capitalist product, particularly if you're not paying it, then either you're being exploited in some way or some other fucker is being exploited. Like, that's just how it works. So I don't think, like, necessarily you can divest if you want to put stuff out and be creative. It's very, very difficult to make videos and not put them somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of professional filmmakers will only use Vimeo, but that's like a subscription model. So I don't know. I think, you know, it's about having a channel. It's always been about having a channel. The question is, where is it effective to have a channel? But I think the second question is, what does it do to your psychology to think of yourself as a channel that thinks about things in terms of numbers? You know, like, what does it do to your psychology to count likes? What does it do to your psychology to make, you know, a video, spend some money on it, put it out, and then kind of you feel like you're almost going begging, like, please watch my video, you know? Like, I just think it's a fucked up position to put artists in, where it kind of, like, immediately psychologically undermines anything that you're trying to make of yourself. And I think as well that a lot of the accounts that do well is because people kind of think of themselves as who they are online. But who you are online is like a weird mixture of, like, your best version of yourself and also, like, your perception of how you come across to other people. So the more real you make that, the more false it becomes, is my theory. The more you try and be authentic, the more you're simulating. And I think that's, again, like a really lonely place to get to, where you're kind of like talking into this void, speaking to people who are also out there trying to project something, and you're trying to project something. It's just like, it can become like a really lonely numbers-based thing. And I didn't get into, like, making art and writing stuff to fucking look at numbers. Do you know what I mean? And I certainly didn't, you know, like, I don't know, like, building a fan base takes a long time online, and some personality's got to be put into it. If you invest all of that time and all of that, or pieces of yourself, the algorithm is such that you might still only be reaching like 1% of those people. So I don't know. For me, I'm just like, I don't fuck numbers. I don't want to be about numbers, like, anymore. So if that means fewer numbers, then I just got to find a different way to use my time to get it in front of people's eyeballs. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
no, absolutely, man. So it's yeah, I think it's interesting to say about the chat, like, picking a channel as well. So right now, I'm diluting. Is that the right phrase? The audience, because I'm on 3 different channels, so we're on.
Yeah.
We're streaming to sometimes multiple Facebook pages. So that's another one where it's like, if I was to stream onto your page tonight as well, then that would actually half our audience, but probably get us more viewers. So it actually looks like we've got less viewers, but we've actually got more. So I think that kind of fits in with the simulation that you're talking about. So if we have,
man, here's the thing, right? Like, I worked as a social media page runner for various organizations of different kinds. And, you know, a lot of that was working on short PR campaigns for artists. And, you know, there was a conversion rate there where basically to earn my check, I had to get enough ticket sales. Like, the ticket sales had to increase substantially based on what social media work I'd done. Okay. So, I mean, it was just really hard to link that, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can get really good numbers and really bad interaction. That's kind of the trick of it for me, is that you can be doing like all the right things and making really good content, and yet for some reason, you know, that shit is going to not work in your favor. The algorithm's going to bury it. Like, it's this idea of a meritocracy that we're all very enthralled to. Like, the cream will rise to the top. You know, everyone will find their niche. I just don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's like, I don't know. So you do have to pick a channel, but you also kind of got to think, well, why am I doing this? Like, I don't know. I think it's becoming, for me anyway, less important about where I put it or how we represent it, and just more about doing the thing, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that if you're talking about the art of making a music, you know, if you're making a good song, you want it to have a good video, and YouTube is the only place to do it. You mentioned Vimeo earlier on, which seems to be the only people that seem to have that is, you know, that I know is film producers and people that make short films, and it's definitely a nice platform. It's less clunky than YouTube, less commercial. Apparently, it's higher quality video and stuff as well. I'm not,
get better rates,
but you're not going to, unless someone's actually going to have to click a Vimeo link that they don't recognise to go into it. They need to be really already engaged in order to go to that world. So I mean, I suppose YouTube is good because at least you've got a music video. There's no point. I mean, you can upload your if you've got a new music video, you can upload it to Facebook, and you're going to get maybe 5 times as many views, whether they're real or not. But once it's been out, it's buried. Nobody's checking Facebook to find an old texture video. Well, if you've got it on YouTube, it's kind of there.
This is the kind of thing I mean, man. Is that, like, you know, like, we were having a conversation about music videos. We both put a lot of time and effort and creativity into our music videos. But we're talking about numbers and fake views, and I just think, like, that's the thing. It diverts you down a fucking weird path where you care about that shit that you shouldn't fucking care about, because it's not fucking important. And I don't know. I think it's really toxic to the artistic mindset.
What about a view count blocker? A view count blocker? Can someone build a view count blocker, and we can start a campaign where so you're keeping the same the same tools you've got just now, but you can't see how many views anything's had.
Again, no, I think that's like, you know, when people talk about like fixing capitalism, they always talk about reforming it. They never talk about coming up with an alternative. And I think that's kind of the same thing. You can block the view count, but, you know, it's still a factor. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with the, I have to be on social media because I'm an artist thing. It's like it's like you're agreeing that this shit has to be punted like fucking like a product. And that just is. I'll give you 2 examples, right? So Gasp is a perfect example in that he didn't get 500,000 views by like boosting his posts. He got it by working on his craft and hopping on beats that people knew so that it would catch their attention, performing like a fucking maniac, coming up with crazy fucking visual ideas, working with good collaborators. That's what got him to those views. That's what got him to those numbers. There's another hip hop artist I know who's like an American artist, and he's like got this strategy which is like basically scarcity, like if what, you know, most people do is like omnipresence, like, you know, okay, I put it on Bandcamp, now it's on Spotify.
Manufacture scarcity is a phrase, I think. Manufacturing scarcity.
Yeah, so what he does is basically he puts up tunes everywhere, but he'll never have a SoundCloud account with like more than 10 tunes on it. And you'll only know that he's on those tunes if like somebody sent you the link. You'll only probably hear about this guy if somebody who's also into this like quite obscure, super lyrical hip hop tells you about him, or you hear about him on a podcast or some shit like that. Like, I think there's maybe one of his tunes on Spotify, and it's like a guest feature. So this guy actively courts only people who would get it finding him. And I don't know if I'm prepared to like go that far of like actively hiding my shit, but I think just putting it in one place, concentrating all the views there, making people come to you, that's definitely where I'm coming from. And I think with YouTube, unless you're doing the to camera stuff, which I like and I watch a lot of, you know, I don't plan to do a lot of that. And I think I don't want to be a personality online. I think I did that for a long time of my life, and I don't feel like it was very much time well spent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So in the manufacturing scarcity idea is it's a phrase I heard someone say, and I quite like it, because everyone's spoiled for choice right now, and that's why when we do the big all day shows where you call that radio, I take it down, and that pisses people off. It's like, you know, I maybe sent a couple of people the link that were on night shift. There was a couple of, I know there was a couple of nurses and stuff that were night shift that were fans of Mog, so I sent them the link just after it, but it's pretty much deleted from the moment it finishes, and there's lots of people going, you know, that's not fair. I missed it, but it's like a real gig. We don't have real gigs at the moment, so it's trying to, no, you need to tune into the gig. You don't get to see the gig unless you tune in.
Totally, it's that moment thing. And I mean, you know, there's other types of content that like I want to fuck with, where I do want it to be everywhere. So, you know, as much as I want to completely delete, or not delete, but like deactivate all my social media accounts, you know, if I'm doing a podcast, like if I'm doing a single, I do want it on Spotify, I want it on iTunes, I want it like available, but I ain't like thinking about making any money off that, and I ain't thinking about looking at the numbers, not anymore, you know.
Well, that's, I suppose, the with the we're going to actually play your for sale tune, because I think that kind of fits in with what we're talking about here.
It does, yeah.
But yeah, because like but in order to get on the big podcast, they're wanting to see numbers as well. They're wanting to see, has this person got a reach?
That's
so, and
like,
then in order to you to promote your new song,
people like successful stuff, man. You know, to make your
in order to sell T-shirts. In order to make your music videos that you spend a lot of time in, in order to sell anti-capitalist music, you need to sell T-shirts in order to fund. And yeah, it's all fucked, isn't it?
Funnily enough, I think, like, in a way, like, I accept that you have to be a little bit of a mercenary capitalist about, you know, if you want to make the money to put into the projects, then you've got to sell people something that they want. So that's very much why I'm making T-shirts. That's very much why we've put so much work into the album. We're going to release it in a deluxe format. But it's also very much why, you know, when I spend some money on some beats, you know, I buy some great producers and make a few tracks, I will just give it away free. Because I do need, but you know, that's all I want to give people now. I don't want to be like on Twitter being like, here's what I think about the US election. Fuck that shit.
We've got some comments coming in. Good evening, says Alan. Sleepy Hollow's live from Baby Dolls. Can you find a TV remote so we can watch you on the big telly? Under the couch or inside the couch, usually in the inside bits of the couch. Or if it's Baby Doll, maybe the fridge. Maybe she's left it in the fridge. Bill says, loving your banter, Naberdoom. You have great guests and an imitable way of style of everyone. Cheers, Mark. Cheers, Bill. Thanks for tuning in. Listen, Nightmare, you can move large stones with Scots. That's a great phrase. We're getting into that a wee bit after this tune. Alan said, all right, Bram. Hello, Alan. Hope you're well. Celtic saying, evening trips. Well done. I think I was referring to the fact that I'm not smoking or stuff like that. So we'll see how. I feel like I'm done with it. You know, if you ask me right now, I'll never smoke again. I feel quite confident in that. And I'm not using the nicotine gum either, because I think that was maybe prolonging
Robo snout out the window as well.
Yeah, man, I ditched the Robo Snout about a year ago. I was quite, to me, it's just too similar to smoking. I think it's a good idea for people who are trying to quit smoking for the first time. Look, it totally blew my mind that, you know, that there is you don't need to smoke 20 a day, you can just get on the Robo Snout. But I think it's too tasty. You know, you're actually making cigarettes taste amazing. And I think my nicotine addiction was going higher up. I don't know what the long-term effects of the thing is, but generally the main reason that I stopped doing it is because as soon as I was out at the pub and I ran out of battery, I'm still addicted to nicotine. There's no way that a drunk me's going to go, all right, I'll just not smoke anything. But I think it's
maybe
good.
You want cake as well, like if it tasted cake, like, you know, I'll have a fucking cake as well, please.
Well, the Skittles, man. I had the Skittles flavour, and it was so good. Like, you know, I just smoked non-stop, just a big cloud of Skittles. Evening troops. Who's your pal? This is Bram. Did you miss the start? Petrol always turns up late. This is Bram. We're beyond saturation point with choice. We are beyond.
It's true. It's the tyranny of choice.
Too much,
that's what it is.
Too much, and that's why we're talking about the manufacturing scarcity of a way of just saying, no, you need to tune in live or you don't see it. So I mean, that's part of me also thinks about doing that about the show sometimes, is like just taking all the episodes, just deleting them all. Just delete them all from the internet. You need to tune in live or you don't see it. And then I think that's a bit extreme. But I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking about for the patrons, I think maybe deleting everything that's not happened recently.
You could do one a week for free and keep the rest on Patreon.
Yeah, but I don't see. This is the thing, man. I mean, I think this is another problem that we have. We obviously, as someone who makes anti-capitalist music in a capitalist world, another problem I've got as well is that most of my fan base is skint, and I feel quite strongly about keeping things free for people who can't afford it. So that's why there is no paywall, and that's why most of them, you know, if it's up to me, most of my music you can download for pay what you want price, and just stuff like that. So that's the problem I think you've got, because I do agree with the whole manufacturing scarcity, but also if you start putting up paywalls or making it secret places to find it, then you're going to run into problems.
Take the music, buy a T-shirt. That's what I always tell people. Right? Like, what help me out, buy a T-shirt, then I can make more T-shirts and sell more T-shirts.
Well, it was actually Doghouse from Sick Note that told me many years ago. We were on an early incarnation of the Gyro Babies. We were on tour with Sick Note, and he said they were glorified T-shirt sellers, and I remember laughing at the time. But I mean, that's just became not even debatable. It was quite a funny sentence to say at the time, but now it's like, no, this is actually what's happening here. Nobody's buying CDs. But I did do a wee bit. The Scottish Album of the Year, there's a full version. Oh, there's a different version, but I wasn't sure about it. So because I've just been editing, furiously editing, I thought I was just going to put that version out as a Patreon exclusive, and anyone who's a Patreon gets a free download of that. Also, I've got a new Jackal Trades tune with Macapella that I'm going to give to the patrons next week, but it will be released at the end of the month. So I think they maybe that's a fair way of doing it, is because the patrons deserve something for their support. So maybe an early exclusive peek at stuff, and then everyone gets free after. Is that fair?
A peek, yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, I think for me, like I do support a few Patreons, and the newsletter, it's really important to me. Like I like to read a Patreon newsletter, but I'm not that fussed about like exclusives or I think if you donate to a Patreon, it tends to be because you want to support the work of the person.
Yeah. Absolutely, man, and I think that the majority of people that support my Patreon, like yourself, man, have done it just out of support, which is amazing. But it's kind of like at the stage now where I'm trying to get to 200, and I feel like I've been close to 200 for the last 5 months. So it's like it kind of goes up to 175. We're at 175 just now, and then it goes down to like 160, 165, and then a lot of that I think is just a few of them take a few days to catch up. But it always feels like you go. I didn't realise until about 4 months into this TV show that it actually goes down and then it goes back up. So it feels like I've hit a point. So I think that if I was to actually offer something a bit more, maybe like access to the old shows or sneaky exclusives, and the sneaky exclusives are coming to the patrons. And I need more raffles as well, man. But the thing is that
raffles are good.
The mad raffles are hard to do in this current. Also, patrons banned me from using the word raffle, so I can't talk about it.
Oh man, that sucks.
I know. They've just said you can't use that word raffle anymore, so I can't use raffle on Patreon. But I will still do the mad raffles. Don't worry about that. But I suppose the main problem is that so many businesses closed are in trouble just now.
Yeah.
It's not really the right time for me to tell them to go, can I get a voucher? Or or a buy a voucher. I was happy to buy a voucher as well for independent cafes and stuff, but they're just everywhere's shut or they don't know when they're going to be open, so it's not a very good time for that kind of stuff. But we're going to watch For Sale. So tell us a little bit about this. How long did this take you to write? I mean, I know that you can tell by everything that you write, there's a lot of time and effort, I'm assuming, has went into just making it sound just right. how much time does go into this song?
This was something of a throwaway. I think I wrote a rhyme in like one day, and I don't know. I just been like not experimenting with putting humor in my lyrics, but just finding it, like finding jokes, finding punchlines, and I had this beat for ages. I bought it off Drew, the architect, from Team Sesh, and I don't know Drew. He just was he had a tweet saying beats for sale, so I hit him up and I used 2 of those on Elevate. But one of them was this like weird fucking beat. It's just absolutely brilliant, but it sounded like it was like a combination of like, I don't know, like the kind of music that you would hear in an American 80s mall, and those kind of trap hi-hats. So it's just real hard to write to, and it didn't really fit anywhere. So when I was putting this EP together, bought some beats from Kid Robotic and Susan, and I thought, let's put the Drew beat on there. So yeah, something of a throwaway, and the video is all stock footage. I attempted to make almost like a lyric video without the words at the bottom, but then I think I got bored halfway through and just started cutting random shit into it. So yeah, it's a bit of a throwaway video as well, but I kind of like it. It's got some charm, and this beat is weird as fuck. So
welcome to the Black Lantern Shopping Network. Deals, get deals, Texture. There's special day here today. Everything's for sale. Massive discount. Limited edition. Limited time only. Attention. Call now on 0800 number. We're waiting for your call. We got beats for sale. We got lyrics for sale. Lyrics to go. Get up. Black Lantern Shopping Network. Let's do this.
I got a lot of stock of product no one gives a fuck about. Looking for strategies to laterally bring the fucking suckers out. Soul trader, put up your dukes. I don't want to hurt you cause you execute your truth with judicious use of the mute button. Than the next guy, vain, I'm prone to flattery. Not a user of a program, burn through people like batteries. Can't deny I've been seen back on the scene with the greenery. Yes, I struggle to operate heavy machinery. Receive these epiphanies frequently. Sleep deeply, not the god but the man who's feet. Moving the scenery up, burning down a haunted house just to pull a cunning stunt. I'm having fun with it, measuring my dick in secret while I deliver rousing speeches at the stump. You probably think I'm a cunt, and if I'm honest, it's not inaccurate. Well, what else would you expect? Same name as the guy that wrote Dracula. People always telling me my vernacular spectacular, but I suck the air out of a room faster than a vacuum. Well, excuse me, motherfucker. I'm just over here trying not to take up space. Whole place goes face when I light a Lucy and the whole room get laced. Can't deny it, I'm spaced. Couch bound on my best days. Middle finger appears more than if this morning I'm heading back to base with 2 cats and a spliff to blaze. You potentially won't see me for days till I emerge from the haze to murder this Drew the architect beat like Jack lost in the maze. See, I'm the type of MC people tend to overlook. Head buried in a dictionary, medically the definition of shook. Full pages in unpublished books, I'm independently healthy. Unfinished project and a dunted hard drive. My cells are stout, I'm a hardcore cynic. Celebrate failure or thrive, but I'm alive at the finish line. Now pass me the fucking Rizla, pearls before swine.
You can buy her. You can buy her. This one's here. This one's here. This one's here. This one's here. Everything's for sale.
If you don't really know what's going on, there's a show that also doesn't know what's going on. Call that radio TV. You call that radio. Call that radio TV. You call that radio TV.
I should call that radio TV. We're live with Texture. And I love that. I love the idea of the Texture shopping network.
That was kind of a comment on this whole thing of like having to sell your fucking music, like we're all capitalists here. I thought, you know, what the fuck would a Black Lantern shopping network look like? But it would probably have music like that going, and I guess it would be selling beats and raps, you know. But yeah, so that's off an EP called User Illusions. The beats on the other tracks are one's by Kid Robotic. Got a feature from Teeth on that one. Shout out Teeth. And the final one is Illuminated Manuscripts, which is on a crazy fucking beat as well by Susan. Absolutely love Susan. I think I probably the Babao album on This Is Not Pop and Scoop, and probably that and Brian the Vampire are currently tied in my affections for album of the year. So I had to get a Susan beat. But I wrote this lyric actually for the album with Gareth, but it never fit on the album for one reason or another. And this was kind of why we started talking about this ancient methods, ancient technology shit.
Now we're talking.
To this, yeah. So I wondered, do you want to maybe perform like a cappella of the lyrics just so that people have got some context?
That would be brilliant.
Okay.
Can I use it? Can I put the exclusive banner on?
Yeah, stick the exclusive banner up because this is the first time these lyrics have kind of gone out anywhere. So
amazing.
Well, apart from obviously on the track. So yeah, go cop the track at textualbank.com. Produced by Susan. Illuminated Manuscripts. It's the first time I've done like an a cappella performance of fucking anything.
So I've got to give you an intro. I've got to give you an intro, and then you're good to go. This is it. This is how you would do it.
Strange mood of our time.
You call that radio?
Makes coherent sense.
We are live on You Call That Radio TV. We're going to go live to the Texture Shopping Network.
Tonight I'm selling mythology. Illuminated Manuscripts. This revelation is alchemical, a chemical poetry that describes the cascading degrees of permutation in a living simulation of platonic solids, transfigured into shadows on cave walls, transmuted, filtered through every flood myth and megalithic architectural arcana. Carefully positioned to bring forth a standing wave, we quarry stone with vibrational tremors, laser corrected through complex centrifugal tempos, aligned along the axis of a constant constellation, traced against the belts of dead heroes or the eyes of our absent fathers. Antediluvian brain chemistry is the mainstay against heresy, like doves cast from topsail and brought down by ravens, bowed wood bound down crystal plinths on sacred waters, watchers wait by circles of stone in holy moonlight, blood spilled upon sigils, complex genomic synthesis, altered and adapted, mixed with mutagens and virulent pathogens, inoculating us against spiritual arrogance. This path is a labyrinth, a door opened by ghost walkers in sight of the home straight on a close time-like curve as we drift past Saturn and say peace to the ashes of Yuri Gagarin. We are the living flesh encoded in holy holographic antimatter, left battling appearance in the semiotic fallout, a godless trinity of indestructible energy ever living in the eternity of now. To transmute base metals into worthless displays of glittering perfection is the curse of our awareness. Trapped inside this predator's gaze, we are the minotaurs at the center of every possible maze, and simultaneously, we are the silver thread leading upward towards sunlight. Don't turn your head to watch the passage of your beloved, lest they get sucked down beneath the pitch dark waters of the Styx. Flying too close to the sun, our wax wings will melt down like gold flake candles, burning out the gutter in the darkness with a small spark that becomes conscious. And at the end of time, your body will become stardust, gathered in the absent light of extinguished suns, until the dark shines down on every single one, just as we forgive our sons, an eternity in the space-time between zeros and ones. Cheers.
Yes, that deserves a round of applause. Yes, the Texture Shopping Network. You will find at texture.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, so that lyric's up the back with the crystals and the dream catchers, you know what I'm saying?
The dream catchers. Well, do you know, we were talking about dream catchers last night. And
really?
Yeah, and maybe you can settle this because I don't know much about dream catchers. I thought that it was maybe to catch the good dreams. So if you dream a good dream and you maybe have a dream, it would catch it on the way out so that you don't forget it. And apparently I'm wrong. We had Yaz Real on last night. He said it was to catch the bad dreams coming in.
Right.
Can you settle who's right?
I mean, what I will say is that, like, I think dream catchers, you know, we have a tendency to look at things like dream catchers or, I don't know, like loads of stuff that we just could just treat it as like woo woo, crazy hippy dippy, no basis in reality, refers to some sort of illusory spectral concept. But these things all have their basis in ritual and in culture. And I think that's the thing, like, when you start talking about the pyramids and the impossible feats of engineering and architecture that they accomplished, impossible only insofar as it's taken the best scientists and archaeologists hundreds of years to even come close to figuring out how they did this. Even though they think they have a pretty good idea now. But when you start talking about that, people immediately go to like ancient aliens, And I think there is that problem with that of like, I think it's like cultural insensitivity of this idea that, well, it must be aliens that built this, or they must have had some advanced technology. They couldn't have possibly done it in this backward country hundreds of years ago with just sticks and rocks. So it plays into these nativist tropes, I think, a lot of these conspiratorial beliefs. But on the other side of it, rituals, culture, beliefs, these are the things which make up everything that we are. They're the things that are passed down. They're the things that you learn about when you start reading and going out into the world, seeing things, and a lot of these are technologies. Like, to describe them not as technologies is kind of crazy. I think, for instance, meditation is a really good example, whereby our idea of meditation is that it's bound up with spirituality and maybe like religious ideas of Buddhism or Hinduism, but it's actually like, as a technology, as a practice for centering you in your body and helping to calm the mind. It's actually like a process, and anything that's a process is essentially a technological artifact. I think the same is true of a dream catcher. I think the same is true of an Aztec pyramid. It depends on your definition of technology, basically. Like, if you look at some of the pyramids in the Maya or Aztec civilizations, there's one pyramid where, depending on where the sunlight strikes it, it gives at different times of the year, I think at the equinoxes, it gives the impression of the serpent descending down over the steps. It's almost like you can see the scales on the back of the serpent moving. So it's an optical illusion that had like a very, very specific effect on the culture, because it said it's time to plant the crops or sacrifice somebody, So I think for me that is technology. I mentioned standing waves and stone circles in that verse. Anybody who's read a little bit about Stonehenge will know that one of the things that it acts as, on a sonic level and on a level of light, is almost like it produces these standing waves. So if you stand there at a certain point in the equinox and make a sound, and the light is hitting it at just the right point, you can watch that sound wave travel along a beam of light. So to me, that's technology. We might not understand its purpose. We might not even really understand its ritual significance. But it's evidence that probably there's a lot more knowledge lost than we're possibly aware of.
So the other stuff about that is the fact that the pyramids were like designed, is it on a scale of the universe or something along those lines?
So there's a couple of really
fascinating
things, about the pyramids. One is the alignment, which is they're aligned with a particular constellation in the night sky. But the weird thing about that is that they're not aligned with it exactly when the ancient kingdom of Egypt is thought to exist. They're actually aligned with where it was 10,000 years ago. And that's significant because, according to the history and the timeline of the ancient Egyptians themselves, that's when the time of the gods was. So the idea that like certain things that we can't carbon date, a lot of structures that are made of certain stone materials can't be carbon dated, and I think a lot of the pyramid and the Sphinx in particular is like that. It's a lot of it's kind of a best guess at when the actual structure originated. Many structures as well are built and rebuilt. Even in terms of like the amount of Egypt that we can see, like a lot of our current scholarship on Egypt, except for very recently, was based on the idea of a much, much smaller civilization and cities and the expanse of their territory. The thing that's changed that is basically laser scanning the landscape by drone and by satellite. And they found that, the whole plain of ancient Egyptian dwellings and temples and burial places extends like all the way under Cairo. It's gigantic. They think we've only really explored 1% of the culture and the archaeology that's there. Plus, you got the fact that it's, like a lot of these places were looted. I think I sent you a link to the story about the ancient kingdom of Kush. And that's a really fascinating story because this is like a kingdom that was already up and running and quite advanced in building pyramids like before the Egyptian society really got to that level, and was still standing when Rome was about to fall. So this is like one of the largest, longest, unbroken dynasties. At one point, the people who were in the kingdom of Kush took over Egypt as well. That was the period of the Black Pharaohs. But because the Western explorers who went there desecrated these places, they also made this assumption that they were like imitating the lighter-skinned, more Hellenic-looking Egyptian culture, that it was some sort of derivative. But in actual fact, this kingdom has a longer lineage. Like more of it's destroyed because they built things out of mud more than they built them out of stone. So there's very few remnants, but there's still tons to be explored. Unfortunately, again, because of our presence there, it's a hugely conflict-ridden zone. So just like in Iraq, the treasures of the, pre-Babylonian times destroyed utterly by the devastation caused by Western occupation and interference. So much of that history is being destroyed. So the potential of not just like lost.
Is that the Library of Alexandria?
I mean, Alexandria, I think, was ruined before, but I'm talking more about like the Sumerian kingdoms. Kind of at the moment, that's what we think the most ancient civilization was.
And are you saying? Just because obviously, are we talking about the? Is it we can't find this information out? Is it because we're not as good as we think we are, and there's just a lot that hasn't been found yet, or has it been deliberately hidden?
I think tons of it has been destroyed. I think tons of it is still in the process of being destroyed. I think that's largely on Western white people in terms of the weight of history. In terms of like occult or hidden, I do think some of this knowledge has been hidden. And I'm not talking on a level of, it's in some way secret. Although, of course, you have got people like the Order of the Golden Dawn, of which Crowley was a member, and also the artist William Blake. You got those guys based their tradition on some Masonic stuff. And again, some of the Masonic stuff had its roots in supposedly the kind of mystery religions of Egypt. So there could be knowledge or wisdom encoded there. There could be technology there that we have the description of, that we have the layout of, but we haven't been able to just give it the context. And I think that's the thing with this stuff is that, acoustic levitation is a really interesting one because that's long been proposed.
Can you explain acoustic levitation for people that are tuned in?
So there's long been a very esoteric theory with not much evidence that some of the ancient structures like the pyramids or the stones of Puma Punku in South America or the Easter Island statues could have been moved with acoustic levitation. And there's some evidence of that in the oral history. That the people who were of the cultures that descended from the people that built those things said they walked them into place or floated them into place. Same is true of Stonehenge. So this always seemed like a very far out thing or like a very magical thing. But very recently, I think it's the University of Bristol, scientists there have been able to acoustically levitate very, very small particles using focused sound waves. So I'm saying that in principle, that technology works. In principle, it is applicable. You just have to scale it up. And that's going to involve orders of magnitude of power. It's very much a technology that's like in its micro incipient stage in our technological understanding of it. But I think it's kind of foolish and arrogant to say that the ancient people might not have had a different and better and more advanced understanding of it. And I don't think you necessarily need to conclude from that fucking aliens gave them shit from their spaceship. I think what you need to conclude from it is just that you have to keep an open mind when thinking about these things. Exactly.
This guy. See, I've never actually watched this. See, I've never actually watched Ancient Aliens, but I've just seen that meme.
I think more people.
So because obviously you're distancing yourself from that guy. So what is it that guy does that's so bad?
I think it is a harmless show in my opinion in a lot of ways because they always frame it as speculation. They say, "What if? Could it be?" So it's an entertaining watch for me if you're completely irrational and skeptical about it. But I will give them credit. which is that they go to archaeological sites that you don't really hear a lot about, and they film there, and they speak to the descendants of the people that built them about what their people believe happened. And then they twist that to fit this weird fucking alien narrative. You know, it's a piece of entertainment that nonetheless contains, I don't know, some like really interesting stuff. So for me, it acted as, I guess, just reminded me of a few wormholes I used to go down as a kid in terms of looking at ancient ruins and thinking about how that might connect to some sense of like cosmic order. You know, I think that's like what every religious framework attempts to describe as a cosmic order. So the idea that there might be pieces of a cosmic order that we don't know about or can't see, or that we're blinded to by our very dualistic Western perspective, I think that's something that's worth keeping your mind open to, you know?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see a wormhole that actually I quite like. And it's good because it is like, you can't prove that. It's good to have a wormhole that doesn't end with Donald Trump is actually Jesus Christ and he's going to save the world. Because that seems to be where all the wormholes lead these days. And but yeah, I suppose I think that there's a really good argument to make, because obviously we're in an era of anti-experts, which I'm obviously careful not to join that gang where it's like just, well, what do they know? They're just experts, and we've got people devoting their whole life to sciences and stuff like that. But there is also a very real part that I always think of as like, think about how much we've learned in the last 50 years or 100 years. The stuff we know now, we would look like aliens with our mobile phones running about just now to someone 100 years ago. So it stands to reason that what we believe right now, 100 years from now, there's going to be a lot of stuff that will look ridiculous or naive or just uneducated.
And things are accelerating so fast now. Like I often think it'd be really interesting to go back with a smartphone and show it to myself age 17 with my pager, you know, where I'm still like, oh, hold on, I got to run to a phone box and I'll call you back, like shit like that. Or do you remember with pagers, like you had to phone up and you speak to a lady and you'd be like, right, it's going to George on this number. It'd be like, hi, George. You know, that's crazy now. That's crazy. Like if you tell someone who's 18 that story about pagers, I don't know. There's a bunch of funny internet videos of showing kids tape recorders and pagers and things.
I did see a meme recently, and it was somebody showing a picture of someone lighting their vape, charging their vape on a computer and saying, what would your 14-year-old self say to that? I was a bit young for the pagers. There was I had one friend at school who had a pager. I don't know why he had a pager. I think he had a reason. He might have had a reason. He said he had a reason, but he might have just been like pretending that he needed to do it. But I was of the era of the first Vodafone pay-as-you-go kind of era. I remember that quite clearly, and that was you had to pay for service. You had to pay for your credit and your service. Total bump.
I got into so much debt with those fucking things. Oh my god,
they were expensive.
But no, I mean, you were talking about like, you know, the whole idea of truth and objectivity and lies and science and propaganda and misinformation. I mean, we're in an era where all of that is very turbulently mixed up, and like you say, people do, you know, like have doubts about the experts' opinion or the mainstream narrative of the media or whatever it is. I think for me, it's like I've always been more interested in storytelling than truth or morality or propaganda for one side or another. I think if it's a compelling story, then it maybe, for me, makes me go out and seek more context. So if I read something about, like, you know, how aliens helped the Egyptians build the pyramids using sonic levitation, I go down a wormhole trying to find scientific papers to find out if the acoustic levitation thing is true. I read like as much as I can about the history of Egypt and, you know, what they actually mean when they're decoding these things. So I don't know, maybe a little knowledge is a dangerous thing for some people, but I think that's quite a patronizing attitude. And I hate this discourse of like, well, science and reason have got it all figured out, and if you don't toe the line that way, then obviously you're an asshole and you're actively harming other people. I don't think it's like that. I think people have held different beliefs and different opinions and different stories about the world quite comfortably alongside one another at different points in history with no fucking problem at all. So I actually think that it's something to do with the mindset today, where we're quite intolerant of people who don't frame the world in the same way that we frame the world, who don't gaze at the world with the same gaze that we do. And I think that's true across like the whole spectrum. And I actually think it does relate back to what we were saying about social media. I think that so many people are on it now that it breeds a kind of like almost like a narcissism field that we all exist in, where we all are curating our personal brands. And I think that makes us uncompromising at times. It makes us, you know, unwilling to admit nuance, or to agree to disagree, or to just listen to people we don't necessarily agree with, but who maybe just need to listen to. You know, so go ahead and punch Nazis if you want. I'm all with punching Nazis. I'm pro anti-fascist violence. But I also think, you know, you got to remember that when you're talking about de-radicalizing skinheads, the people that do that most effectively are former skinheads. So does that mean that you should, you know, allow skinheads to spout racist rhetoric everywhere? No, it should be challenged. But, it, you know, human beings have a capacity for richness, complexity, change. And I think you forget that.
There should be a path to redemption. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, if you're going to cancel someone completely, then they're just going to go to a part of the internet where they're actually maybe their bad behaviour is celebrated, and then that's creating even more of a problem. So there should be a path to redemption. And also I think the main problem is that some people are getting called Nazis that aren't actually Nazis at all. So it's just
I think that's a general trend as well, of like the overuse of terms, like you know, quite important terms emerge out of like academic discourse, and then they get like weaponized by a certain part of the right or another. Like identitarianism is a thing on the right, where they started describing racism, scientific racism, the idea that one race is better than another genetically. They kind of dispensed with that and went after identitarianism, which said that different cultures should be able to preserve their own culture, and that any attack on that was racist itself. So they flipped the whole thing. You know, it was still white supremacy, but it was now, you know, depicted as identitarianism. I think that's the danger, really, of like having rigid categories and rigid boundaries. You know, I'm from a family of very mixed, like ethnic and geographical locations. So I get quite angry at like narrow characterizations of people, whether that's along race, gender, nationality, all those lines. These things are porous. You know, no border really exists. Borders are things that we, you know, they're like a consensus reality. We'll go, right, the line's there. The line's not there. The line moves, you know.
Absolutely, man. And we've got some comments coming in. Petra's loving the levitation chat.
Nice.
And we've got, for anyone, there's a Wikipedia link for anyone who wants to hear more about acoustic levitation. Joe McCann says history is forever changing, like a Chinese whisper told from a changing perspective.
It's true.
Absolutely. And I think that maybe, just to sort of touch on what Bram was saying, is that maybe it's important to remember that there is that element of the stuff that we don't know, and we've got to be aware of the stuff we don't know. And I think that maybe that's why a lot of the fake news is doing so well just now, because everybody knows that there's stuff we don't know deep down, even if they don't know it consciously. And anyone who's ever taken psychedelics is definitely probably more likely to be there's maybe more to this than meets the eyes. So I think it's worth bearing that. But I think maybe also we should maybe be teaching people at school about how to sort of spot a fake news story. Do you know what I mean? Because it does feel like there's a lot of fake websites out there that are definitely using it for their own agenda, and it's quite obvious that this is a fake website. It's just appeared. It's really badly put together, and every single story seems to have an angle that involves hating other people.
Yeah. Darren Garvey talks about this. He talks about information literacy, and I think that's something that's absolutely vital, if not like probably the most vital thing to teach young people, is to be able to read things, for tone, for context, for where they sit in the information architecture. You know, I think that's vitally important. But, you know, it's also about ideology. Like the classic definition of ideology in Marx is they do it, but they do not know they're doing it. And I think unless you're able to parse information that's coming at you with some basic idea of how those ideologies are framed and where they originate and what the history of them is, then it's really, really hard to understand who's playing you, you know, or how you're being played. And so the instinct to want to find out more that's embodied in the conspiracy theory mindset, I actually think is a good thing. what's dangerous is the low levels of literacy in terms of parsing information, being able to tell, you know, what its context is. I think people are very easily deceived because they don't have the context. They're kind of adrift, and that's a failure of society and education and all sorts of things, you know.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I think that sort of my background was I was read all the different news sources, watch the different channels from Fox News to Russia Today, and when you're in that level, you can, if you really think, if you're thinking about it and sort of watching it properly, you can usually work out what is actually going on. You know, what is all the language they're using. You know what their biases are, and you can usually figure it out. But you can't. I mean, I couldn't do that every day, all day, every day. It's not a pleasant place to be. You know,
It's
that
overload,
consumed in the
yeah,
world
it's
of news.
overload. Yeah.
So you need to take a little break. But so obviously I'd like to think I'm quite good at not sharing fake news, being able to work out, you know, what the agenda is. But at the same time, I'm aware of my biases, and I'm going to be I'm going to be investigating a fake news story that I don't agree with much more vigorously than I'll share a story that I don't like, you know, that suits what I believe anyway. But I mean, a wee bit of advice to anyone who sees something that they don't, they're like, is that true? Wow. I mean, it's usually quite shocking. That's the stuff that gets shared most, is like, you know, I seen one the other day from a QAnon person who had predicted that Donald Trump was going to do a landslide. So I was like, I wonder how they're reacting to the fact that there's not a landslide, and they just sort of
I don't know if you can
move the goalposts to that Dr. Fauci's actually Mother Teresa's son. That's the new one. That's just like a shocking headline that makes people want to share it. So what I would recommend to people, it's clickbait. So if anyone's wondering, one simple thing you can do is type in the headline and then just type in the word debunked after it. Now, you can also say that these fact checkers are working for the other side and all that, which is fair enough. But what you're going to do is you're going to get an opposite angle. And then when you've got two bits of information, you can go, right, that seems more likely than the other, or maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Is Snopes still a thing as well? Snopes.com is really good at debunking things and fact checking things. But I think
people say that Snopes is, you know, Bill
it's very
Gates.
hard to escape that accusation now of being, you know, of the water being poisoned. In fact, it's all people do, and I think that's almost like a function of the headlines, Mark. Like I think I'm almost tempted not to draw too much of a conclusion from the shit that people share, because one, I don't think like many people read the shit that they share, and two, I don't think many of the people that comment on shit that people share comment on anything but the headline. Like, I think these discussions happen at like quite a base ideological level, where actually what's happening is not even an argument, but like a simulation of an argument, you know, like a lot of the stuff that happens in the online sphere. And that's why people would say stuff that they would never say to somebody in person. It's not just because they know that they get a fucking smack, some of the shit they say to someone in person. It's also because they're all like, they've all got something to lose by backing down, which is this like, you know, impression of themselves as coming across on the internet. And really the headlines are really just like baseball bats or fucking knives. You know what I mean? They're not performing the function of a piece of information that someone's actually believing in the vast majority of cases. It's just like more fuel for the fire. It's some look at me narcissistic bullshit. It's like, oh, you know, draw your conclusions about me from the opinions that I share. It's not the same thing as here's my opinion, you know?
Also, it's interesting to note that a lot of the articles that people argue over are actually well balanced written articles, but then they goes to the editor who, in order for in this current, especially the newspapers who are losing so much money now, they're having to switch clumsily to online, and a lot of them can't handle it. And the only way that they're getting the advertising revenue is by having a clickbait headline. So you see stuff like that on a smaller scale. I noticed today that Glasgow Live did a story about how Box, Nice and Sleazy's and Broadcast were all refused funding. And on the cusp of it, so everyone's arguing, all my friends obviously quite rightly are saying this is a disgrace. And I had a quick read of the article, and it says that something along the lines that they can apply for a different fund. So it might not be exactly what they're saying it is, but it doesn't matter because everyone's arguing. All the people in the music industry are all going mental about it quite rightly. But then you've got all the people that hate Nicola Sturgeon saying, oh, well done, Hitler.
Well, exactly.
And
Everybody's got their line drawn. Everybody's got their own axe to grind, and that's. I mean, here's another thing as well. Like, if you look at a really dangerous thing, that again is like not like something the media do to be evil cunts, but it's just driven by the quest for clicks. Is that like they'll commission a piece from either side? So if there's a talking point, they want the right wing and the left wing point on it, and they want people to hate share it, and they want people to quote tweet it and agree, and then kick off an argument, and that's what drives reach and interaction, and that creeps over into other media. Like I've seen a lot of journalists and intellectuals and academics of color talking about, or people in the LGBT kind of scenario, talking about being booked to talk against somebody who's from a kind of alt-right perspective, because that's really what they want. They want the conflict. They actually don't care about either position. It's about the conflict that's generated, which brings more eyeballs to it. So that's a very, very dangerous information ecosystem for anybody to exist in, whether they have some smarts and some education, or whether, as is probably the case, they've been let down by society and by the state in that regard. So I think information literacy is such an important thing, man. Such an important.
Is that also why Nigel Farage has got the most appearances on Question Time?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a guy who just was never. I mean, how many elections has he lost?
Mm-hmm.
In normal political terms, it would be irrelevant.
It's not a conspiracy. He's just good telly. That's why Donald Trump is fucking president, man. Like, I'm not saying he isn't a fascist or a super right wing autocrat / totalitarianist / horrible populist. He is all those things. He's also good fucking telly, and that's a huge amount of people voted for him because he's famous and they know him.
And it's the ratings are. I mean,
the ratings are off the chart.
The ratings off the chart. I mean, every day the things that he would say because we're like, well, if he becomes president, he's obviously not going to keep acting that way. But he did for 4 years, and well, I mean, he still is. He still is. He's barricaded himself in his White House. He's talking about how it's a fraud.
Burgers.
And I mean, could he take down American democracy?
Oh gosh, I mean, that's a huge question. I think what he's most recently done is he's fired Mark Esper from the feds, and is like now hiring all these horrible perjurists and right-wing ideologues. So he's trying to like stack the FBI and the CIA and people like that with like people in favor of him. I mean, he's just tried so much dangerous shit. And the fact is, democracy is fragile. So as much as you want to fight the mainstream narrative or like the least worst evil, I mean, there's no doubt that Joe Biden is in the pockets of all of the big corporate interests. And it's not going to necessarily make much difference between Biden and the next guy. But I do think it makes a difference slightly between Biden and Trump, even if it's just like a less naked extortion of evil ends. I don't know. Now we're into the whole where is this shit headed conversation with climate change and, global resources and all of that stuff. And those
I suppose at least that Biden is admitting that climate change is a real thing.
Yeah. None of this is happening fast enough, though. So I don't know, man. I think a lot of this shit is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. But at the same time, getting rid of an authoritarian like Trump is always a good thing. And we've got to have space to celebrate it and try and think about why.
And also the fact that the Tories, it was a bad day for the Tories. So if we can at least celebrate that for a couple of days, that's nice, because Brexit is a shambles now. And here comes in a guy who absolutely hates Boris, who sees Trump as a clone. Boris is a Trump clone who is one of these old Irish guys who thinks he's Irish. He's got great grandparents who's Irish. I'm Irish, so that's going to make things a little more interesting as well. But yeah, I mean, like, Biden's not good. He is, like you said, in the corporate pockets. But I suppose when you've got a guy who's just can go on Twitter at any point and just say racist shit. This is a guy who probably thinks racist shit, which is, you would normally think is just as bad. But when you've actually got people picking up guns and getting very racist, it's bad times.
I think the extent of the larceny and the destruction of infrastructure that's gone on under Trump probably won't come to full light for a very long time. And it might not necessarily be a good thing to have the evil empire of the US being a huge global force in politics. That might be a bad thing on balance. But nonetheless, you definitely don't want a fucking drunk orangutan in charge of that power.
We're going to play another tune, man. We've got.
Cool.
Hold on. I'm going to play Burnt Trail in a little second. Just catch up with the comments. Donald Trump staging a coup on American soil. How ironic. I don't know what's going to happen there. Do we just get kicked out screaming, or what's going? It's definitely. I don't see him leaving quietly, and he's still tweeting about it being fraud. Yeah, and they turn their minorities as issues. Come and defend your right to exist. Snopes got caught out putting out nonsense stories so they could debunk them. There you go. Has that story been debunked though? Is that fact checked? That's a belter if it's true. Once heard wise words, respect all opinions but criticise all of them. Absolutely. I agree with that. Wise man who said that. Civic engagement, tiredly. So yeah, info literacy is a key skill for participation in civic society. The people who ridiculed media studies are the most likely to share fake news on Facebook.
Yep.
Correct. It's I think obviously it's always been important because newspapers and mainstream media have always been lying. And I suppose this is the most annoying thing I find is that if I ever point out a fake news story to someone, is that they immediately come back and call me mainstream. In fact, someone even accused me because I've got a podcast that I am mainstream media. And that's annoying because I've spent my whole life fighting against mainstream narratives and mainstream politicians. And now if I don't believe that, that Donald Trump's Jesus, I'm mainstream media. I'm
People
fake
just
news.
argue, they throw insults, ad hominem attacks, they question each other's sources. None of that is really that productive to a civil conversation. So, yeah.
We've got Colette's in the house. I hope you found your TV remote. She says, Bram's in good looks, quality market. Bra, love baby doll. We've got Paul Bluff says truth. And
Paul.
And Tam the Van, I shared a good track here. Happy birthday, Tam. It's Tam the Van's birthday, I believe. So,
happy birthday,
absolute
Tam.
legend. Happy birthday, mate. And it was a good track. It was PJ Harvey doing a cover of The Fall, I believe. But we can't play that due to copyright reasons. We can play a texture track featuring the incredible Astronomic. Let's talk a little bit about the video. Let's talk a little bit about Astronomic as well.
Big up Astronomic. He is one of the most talented rappers in Scotland. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Incredible producer. And the thing I like about him is just that his ideas are so from left field. You hear Astronomic beat, the Abruptly remix. I think I'd probably put that as a candidate for the tune of the year. I think had Kid Robotic, Loki, just a ton of people on it. It was like a who's who. And that just beat is so insane. The stopping and starting, the angularness of it. So yeah, I'd long been an admirer of Ash's stuff, and knew him from seeing him around at a few places. So yeah, I was doing the Forest Gods EP and we were chatting. I wanted to get him involved, and he ended up kind of being the creative force behind it, certainly with that track. We went out and shot a video with Mackenzie in a secret location in an abandoned castle in Scotland that is just really eye-poppingly beautiful. It was a really great day. Mackenzie shot the whole thing, and then Ash and Oscar Jam put it together in the cut. The beat is by HypnoKid, who's just an absolutely amazing producer. He's a kind of up-and-coming guy. I sent him a sample to flip the other day, and he flipped it in 45 minutes, which is insane. Fully produced track from a sample in 45 minutes. He sits up all night, writing 30 tunes a night. So yeah, rappers, if you're needing beats, get out HypnoKid. He's got the goods. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out, and hopefully this is the kind of standard of video we're going to be putting out from here on out, man.
Amazing stuff, man. Give me a second. Oh, hold on a minute, man. I'm getting a little bit of a loading thing. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, man. Sorry, I think something. My computer's just froze a little bit there.
No.
So yeah, just to sort of
fill some time.
Yeah, just fill in the time. No, I love the video. I think that the Astronomic as well, man. I totally agree with that. The Abruptly tune. I actually prefer the original. I think it's Gallus, though, the way that he came back with a remix of the song, and with all those people.
Absolutely superb.
I think the original's definitely going to be.
The stuff he's done with Caddy K as well. It's just it's so inventive, and it's very different to what I think anybody else is doing, which is definitely kind of what I look for in the stuff I like the best. Yeah, I'd like to see Astronomic on more tracks, man. Definitely. Oh, Mark, you still there?
I'm here. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're there twice now.
I'm there twice. We're ready. We're ready now, I think.
Dope.
Let's do this.
I walk these hospitals, heard the fights like octagons, kept boxing on. Toxic talk, there's lots involved, like letting your toxins talk. As I float, trying to sync with an international body clock. Tick-tock, there's lots involved. She acts like a bitch to get me to act like a nice guy. Fuck you then, bye-bye, fuck you then, really don't need you. Really you need me, like I could do something with my life. I'm juggling my time, stuck in a hustle in crisis. Cutting drivers, they stuck in the blind spot, so suckers are biased. Got the snake of the wood in a choke. I flex on them like muscular biceps. You pissed on me while I suffered in private, suffered in public. Said you was down for the cause, all of a sudden you silent, had me derailed. This a good thing I had stuff in alignment, tuned up under the hood again. Yes, now I'm up in the mileage, press it like vinyl. Swear I told you undeserving pagans, everything I know. Took it and left me behind, so watch me elevate my next shit excellently with every level that I go. In the forest with the gods. Abundance of demons among these men. I'm in a spiritual war. Spread these samples, only thing always blessing my soul. How bless my flow. It's intelligent life code. My texture to rest your mind explode. Protection, no pressure detection, got the finest code. Special pinch of color on every inch I cover. The industry act like a rich motherfucker and sell you a crisis loan. Sign here. The devil is a lie. I've been searching hell, doing this when words fell. All you fucking did for me was spin me in circles of teach me fairy tale and isolation. 3 days no sleep, making you turn pale. Made the finger to your bridges like fuck a burn trail. Like fuck a burn trail.
The marks on this page are a cipher. Holy terror, symbol writer. We practice crypto in paper journals like journalists mixing shorthand with graph and type techniques. Ancient hieroglyphic languages, Enochian anti-angelic wavelengths encoding Christian heresy like layers of subtext in Tarkovsky. The whole process is cryptography if you study the mathematics, but I could never count backwards. Dissected on multiplication tables like traffic accident victims or alien abductees. And so I wrote my own code, indecipherable to any man who seeks to follow the prophecies. Left the keys in the forest, down the back of an ancient god's throat. Clues float like lily pads on algae choke ponds that conceal portals. Too deep a reflection from mere mortals. You find your own path or fail. No turning back on a burnt trail. The frail inherit the earth, but the strong poison the soil. Boiled revolutionary script scenarios beyond the comprehension of your ever-presence. The river of your narcissism feeds the pools I choke with roots and vines. Astronomically refined textures engraved in megalithic altars to the forest gods. Tallest of the old tales, hungry jackals, false grails. The truth is in the trees, not the wooden cross and the nail.
You call that radio? You call that radio TV? No. You call that radio TV?
This is You Call That Radio.
This is You Call That Radio. Absolute cracking tune there. Texture and Astronomic. And
Yeah,
amazing
I'm happy
video.
with
It just
that.
looks
That
so
really
green.
looks fun, man.
It looks so green, the forestry.
Yeah, we caught the vibe in there, man. That light was beautiful as well. Yeah, it's a good one, and we've got some cool ideas for the videos for Illuminate coming up as well. I think for me, it's like all about location, and the thing is as well, like see the kind of abandoned building video, like that's getting quite frequent now. So people are going to try and put a twist on that shit. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to think about like places we could film.
Foggy. I predict foggy videos.
But cool.
I predict some foggy music videos coming up
yeah.
because it was really foggy the other day for 2 days, and actually I went out and filmed a bit with a phone, so I probably don't know if it'll even make it into the video, but it looked so cool. But it looked cooler in real life. I think you probably need a proper good camera to capture how cool
And
fog
if you're
is.
filming outside as well, you've got to have a good camera.
You've got to have that lighting sorted as well. Krishma says, great tune and great video.
Hey, peace.
Obi
What's up,
Joe.
Chris?
Obi Joe from China Shop Bull says, just caught the end of that. I need more of that in my life. Well, good news.
Texturedbandcamp.com.
Yes, the Texture Shopping Network is available at texture.bandcamp.com. And if you buy a t-shirt, you will be funding the
next
new
video.
videos.
That's true.
The next
That's
video.
true.
So do that. Celtic says Beltar. Also, I didn't actually get people commented on your last poem as well. I didn't actually forgot about that. Jam CCT James,
man.
He's there. We've got Magic. Really get into texture, some deep lyrics. Takes a while for the monkeys in my head to work out sometimes, but well worth it. Well, that's what good hip hop and good poetry should do.
I'm definitely a disciple of that, like really dense 90s shit. I think LP was always my hero, you know. They did a really good article recently about LP where they interviewed him about the lyrics of Fantastic Damage and the production. He's just talking about how hard he went with it all. And that densely layered shit. Yeah. I mean, like everybody, I probably started out copying LP. I think the first rap line that I wrote was, even when I say nothing, no. It was a beautiful use of negative space, or a beautiful space with a negative use, which is absolutely a response to the LP line, which is, even when I say nothing, it's a beautiful use of negative space, which is just so fucking perfect as a line. Like, god damn. Even when I say nothing, it's a beautiful use of negative space. So yeah, I think that's kind of a manifesto for writing rhymes as well. Is that you got to use everything. You got to use the pauses. I guess if I have a secret weapon, it's vocabulary. I used to buy out of date textbooks. You know, talking about like out of date information, stuff that isn't factual. I bought like textbooks just from science, from different branches of science, chemistry, physics, just to like copy down the words, like as many polysyllabic words as I could get. I do a bit less of that now, but yeah, I just like big crunchy words, and I think probably that's not everybody's thing, but that's how I approach it, you know.
Talking about the pauses, I think that what I noticed about the pausing for spoken word, that's all it is, really. And that's why if you do like a few spoken word gigs, I'm far from an expert in that world, but when there's been times when I've done a few gigs back to back, and then I've, maybe your fourth gig in a month, you're just really quite good at it, and you just better. You've vastly improved, and it is all down to just knowing when to pause and let something sit in the air for a while. And you obviously, you're a Scottish Slam champion who just paused your poetry. Are you going to go back to that, or are you just finished with it?
It's a funny thing. I really enjoyed the 10 years that I spent doing that, but I think in a way it doesn't necessarily reward what the kind of stuff that I was producing. The best thing that I did was the year I won the Slam, I did a show in the Fringe, which was called Ex Nihilo, and it was like an exploration of philosophical nihilism in poetry. So it's kind of like a heavy concept. Yeah, I think that for me was great because it was like it was a show that was about ideas that had poetry in it. So if I went back to doing it, I think that's the kind of thing I'd want to explore, and how much poetry or rap it would have in it, I don't know. I've really enjoyed Darren's live shows, which, again, he makes everything that he does fit it in some way. But I think to be honest, like the more I think about it these days, it's not like I'm quitting rap, but I think I'll be doing it for very different reasons. Like I think the album is kind of my final statement, final thing I'll be pushing really. Where I find myself kind of drawn now is actually just writing non-fiction essays. I've been working on a lot of those. Haven't published any yet, and I've actually got a podcast which I'm about to launch. So I'm very excited about where that could go. And,
tell us about the podcast.
Cool, yeah. So it's hopefully launching in December or January. I've actually recorded a few episodes already, and it's literally a very simple format. It's just talking to interesting people with a particular specialism or point of view on life, or that they're experts on one thing or another, and asking them a little bit about their thoughts. So I'm not, as much as we talked a little bit about my opinions and political leanings tonight. It's not really about that. It's about the people I'm speaking to. So yeah, I guess it's about ideology, identity, and just ideas. The podcast is called Strange Exiles. It's going to be going out on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. And I think at the moment we just have a Twitter, which is at Strange Exiles. But it's a very new territory for me. But it's been a bit like tonight, just sit down for an hour or more and have a conversation with someone and see where it goes, and just get them to unpack things that maybe people might not have heard about before. So yeah, the first one is with a Dutch philosopher called Peter Sass, who's an expert on non-dualism, which is kind of the way that that Eastern religions and belief systems frame the understanding of reality, and that filtered into quite a lot of Western philosophy. So he's explored a lot of those ideas, and it's some quite complex stuff. It goes back. He talks about the Upanishads, and we just kind of debated like the nature of reality itself for an hour, which was absolutely brilliant. So I'm looking forward to dropping that first one. Upcoming guests, I've got somebody who describes himself as a combat magician, lifting hexes and curses and that kind of thing. He actually once tried to hex Brexit, so he was a really fascinating guy. I've spoken to another guy.
What's he called?
His name is Cat Vincent.
Yes, I know him.
Yeah, lovely guy.
I was at one of his Brexit hexes.
That's right. You went down and played one of the Hex Brexit things, didn't you?
I was playing the Brighton Fringe, and it was on, and it happened to be on the night the Brexit was going to happen, and he'd hexed it before, but he did another hex at midnight or something. It was a bizarre night, man. It was a great night. I love Brighton, but that'll be interesting, man. Good.
He's
good
a really
guess.
interesting cat. Yep. And then future guest, I've got a kind of Pulitzer-nominated journalist from Las Vegas. I spoke to him just before the US election about this and that. I think I might even have a poet or two on at some point if they've got something to talk about. So I'm very much drawing on like just circles of friends and acquaintances at the moment, but I hope to cast the net wider if people want to listen and want to hear more. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, that's the thing. Like I sent a couple of messages out on Saturday to some sort of big names, and then I'm like, obviously I've not got a reply. So I'm like, I don't normally do it. I don't normally, I message people that I know, or sometimes occasionally someone will message me, but I can't continue. I will run out of people eventually. I'm surprisingly not.
You've had a few big names on there, man. I mean, I've
had a few big names, but usually I know them. I knew them in the one. I knew them before they were famous. So
my dream guest, I guess, would be probably the philosopher John Gray, who writes a couple of pieces a month for New Statesman. He wrote a book called Straw Dogs, which is basically about the idea that human consciousness is not as unique as we think, and that really there's not as much difference between us and animals as we'd like to believe, and that the things that we put so much faith in, like history, belief systems, ideologies, that these things are quite ephemeral and probably more vulnerable to collapse and chaos than we think. And I think, certainly given the last few years, the ideas in Straw Dogs have only got kind of more relevant. So yeah, I'd love to speak to him, but I think probably I'm not quite famous enough at all in any shape or form to get in his Rolodex quite yet.
Well, the thing is, it's quite surprising. Most people do say yes.
Yeah,
I think maybe as well because of just people are artists, especially a lot of their busyness comes from doing book, touring their book or touring their album and flying about for meetings and stuff like that. So I think you've got a better chance. That's why I should be asking I should be going for it and just asking people. So if anyone's got any recommendations, just do it. What's the worst that can happen? But it just feels a bit empty when no one gets back to you. I don't know, like that's the same way that I don't like try and get my music reviewed that often, because I did try that once before or twice before, and it's quite, the deafening silence you get from that.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to take at times. So
I've been on the other end of that though, man. I mean, I was a journalist for years and worked for the Skinny magazine. And as a journalist, you quite often want to highlight the same band again and again, but you're under various pressures to cover other stuff you might not like, or not that you don't like it, but you just, you'd rather highlight other stuff. So I think, there's the sheer volume of music that journalists have to parse and then select. I think maybe for artists, it's quite like if you could see, because back in the day when at the Skinny magazine we used to get it on CD, mostly you get downloads now. But man, I could show you like crates of CDs sitting right over there, and it's just like press release, single, press release, album, press release, single. You know, even looking.
One of them will be worth a lot of money one day.
Maybe we'll see.
Surely one of them made it. Fucking hell, one of them must have made it. One of them must have made it.
You know what?
Well,
like
we've got
a band that did really, really well. That like started from very small when the Skinny started covering them was Young Fathers. It became a huge, big international deal. So yeah, I guess some people make it through the sort, but it's a lot. I think, you know, just the sheer scale of the number of tracks. And I mean, you were saying earlier about things disappearing in the feed. That's very true. It's real hard to like gain traction, even with a good bit of content. And when it comes to the traditional print media, basically, like if you aren't already selling millions, it's pretty unlikely they're fucking with you, you know. So it's always great when someone does get a review in the paper. Like I think Conscious Roots album got reviewed in the Scotsman. It's always enormously pleasing when something like that happens. And they shout.
And he was God in the Scene today as well. That's not. I remember that's one of the places that ignored me before. I'm actually toying with the idea. Well, not toying with the idea. I've actually had the idea of putting a review section on the You Call That Radio website, which is about to go live. But you know, I'm aware that this is going to add more to my workload. But I still
only
think
one man, Mark. You're only one man.
But at the same time, I'm just thinking, if I just do the odd, you know, if I just keep it short reviews, I could just do it, and it's good for the website and it's good for people because there's so many people that don't get reviewed. But I'm also concerned that I get enough messages and notifications as it is without opening up like the whole music industry to message me or poetry scene to message me for reviews every time. But I think I'm probably going to do it anyway.
Here was the worst thing about reviewing stuff by people that were already established is that essentially they didn't give a fuck what you put in your review. Like you could write some beautiful words about their album, but unless it like significantly increased their Metacritic score, they didn't give a fuck, you know? Because if you give them a 3 out of 5 for like an ambitious album that didn't quite hit, but was still like the purists would love it. That's a balanced review. You could be saying some real nice things about that artist. All they care is it pulls them down by like half a star on Metacritic. Like I had a guy who's like signed to a label, like a pretty big independent label, like come on Twitter around the time I was doing my French show. I had given him a 3 out of 5, but it was this really kind review. And he was like, how about I come to your French show and give that a 3 out of 5, motherfucker? I'm like, dude, you're sitting in your loft apartment in fucking New York. You're signed to a label I would kill to put a single out on. Fuck you, buddy, you know. So it's a funny thing, man. Again, it's like numbers. So that's what people give a fuck about. Fuck numbers. Don't show me numbers, you know.
Well, I was a reviewer for a while before, and I think whilst I grew up with the NME, Melody Maker, that kind of, you know, quite harsh, savage critique of bands, and I quite liked that, and I thought that's where I would go down the route. But in the real world, what ends up happening is I just had too much a guilty conscience to destroy a band, you know. So what I ended up doing was not reviewing someone. If I thought they were shite, I just wouldn't review them. But I suppose that also makes for quite boring content, because if I'm just going to review everything that I like, then it's just going to be me saying nice things about something. So the reason that I stopped doing reviews is because I find it hard to you know, write nice things in an interesting way. But I thought, why am I just doing that? That's a roadblock. I can surely write a few lines in an interesting way. So it's one of those things that's annoyed me that I've never managed to nail, but I know that I can do it, so I'm just going to try and do it. Have you get any advice on how you do that?
Well, I think it's the sad thing about criticism now is that it's actually a really fucking hard line to tread, as you've just described. To have some sort of objective set of aesthetic standards that you apply, and then to turn that into interesting writing. I don't even know if people are necessarily looking for that. Like, I think if you wrote that kind of good review journalism, it wouldn't necessarily be the kind of stuff that many places would print, you know. But
it's just for my website, though. It's just for my website.
What I'm going to say is like my favorite blogs. Like Miff Morris has a blog called Gobo Photography Revel Rousers, and you know, she writes from a point of view of passion. She writes about music she cares about and is passionate about. So I think if you're doing that and you're maybe not bothering with stupid things like 3 stars out of 5, then it's worthwhile doing it. But it's a shame that the professional critic has as a role kind of just been eroded. You know, like you don't get paid a lot of money to do a review. And I mean, the example I'll give from the Skinny days is that the most clicked on article that I ever had was essentially I wrote like a really fucking harsh takedown of an Eminem album. It was, I can't remember which one it was. I can't even remember, but I basically was looking at the stats.
Could have been any of them.
I was like looking at the stats on the website and just noticing that the really clicked on articles were the 1-star reviews where the band's fans got really fucking butthurt and came from all over the world to like pile abuse on in the comments. So I was like, let's do a few more of these because it's my job to get the stats up. So I wrote a really savage takedown of an Eminem album, and lo and behold, the comment section just exploded with people like, "You must respect the Slim Shady LP." Yeah, and it's you know, fucking, it was up there in the top 10 of the site for fucking ages. So people like to hate read as well. So again, you know, I think if you're doing it for clicks, then it's a different kind of journalism. Whereas what you're talking about might be like, you might be writing about your mate's fans, you might be giving them like, you know, a kind review, but it's still done from a place of passion. So it's arguably worth more than some fucking thing that's written for clickbait. Like, oh, why you two are actually brilliant. Fuck off. Nobody cares. Like, well, I mean, obviously everybody cares, but I don't give a fuck. So.
Well, the advice I'm going to take from that is that I should not have a, because I would have automatically given it a rating out of 10, but especially that if I will be writing about people that I know, then what you're going to do is you're actually going to give someone a really kind review. One day you're just going to be feeling really, really just in a good mood. So you're like, that's a 9 out of 10. I fucking love that album. And then about a month later, I'm going to review an album and give it an 8 out of 10 that's just as good, but I'll forgo about my standards. And someone's going to go, oh, so you're saying that he's better than me and all that shit, so I can't.
You're opening yourself up to that. Like, one Skinny writer got fucking beaten up by a member of an indie band in the bogs of a fucking an Edinburgh club at one point because he gave like a 2-star review to them. I don't know if I'm even allowed to tell that story now that I'm not an employee.
Well, you haven't said any. You haven't named any names.
Names, but it's, you know, like that was all because we opened ourselves up to it by fucking putting the. I mean, from a big magazine perspective, it helps because it means then you do get counted towards Metacritic. But really, as a band, getting a review, like I actually give more of a fuck about the writing, and because I'm building a press release that I want to send on to get more press, so I can take a like good phrase out of a lukewarm review. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And nobody's going to click through. Nobody fucking clicks through. Nobody reads the whole thing. So yeah, your lukewarm review can easily be turned into a one-line, oh, it was fucking great, mate. Do you know what I mean? If you're putting a fringe show, it's a bit of a different story. Like, and that's why the fringe critic market is so aggressive. Once people competing for getting paid £20 to review one show or whatever, is because the artists really need those stars. Because a 5-star show, people come and see it. A 4-star show, people don't. So in that sense, the star ratings do matter, but I don't know. It's still pretty fucking evil, isn't it?
It's just up to someone on a whim. Just went, why not? Yeah. This is my review. This is my most recent review. Mark McGee has always been a bad loser, and it's from being denial. The facts is just further proof. A bad-tempered diatribe against the music industry. His denigration of his rivals is just pathetic. Clearly delusional. He thinks he's won some kind of accolade and seems to think he's some kind of container. He's asked.
There you go. There's your quote for the next press release. Clearly delusional. Love it.
I should point out that at the bottom is this music. See, okay, all above is shite, and yes, MM has done a good industry part of itself. The press was well with some great ways. A great track. See, what I did was I just took the bad stuff and used that, because I have noticed as well that what you said, when we've had a bad review, like when we share, so if someone reviews us, we don't get reviews much anyway, because one, we're too small. All my projects are too small to really get reviewed. Secondly, I don't really push it because, you know, that I have wasted time before. The deafening silence, the rejection, I can't be arsed with that. Which I should be able, by the way, that's terrible advice. I tell everyone else, just put it out there, what's the worst that can happen.
Yeah.
But I don't tend to do it. I'm usually too busy to do it. But when you do get a bad review, and it is funny, I mean, you get much more people interested in your new thing. So if I share a thing saying, oh, my new single got a 9 out of 10, people go, very good, very, very good. All your supporters go, like, very fucking good, whoopee-doo. But if you get a bad review, then people are like, fucking, what a cunt.
It's that reality TV mentality, though, isn't it? It's like, who gives a fuck if you're watching a reality TV show and everyone's nice to each other and gets on? That's like bad telly, right? But you know, when it kicks off or when somebody's having a fucking nervous breakdown, it's fucking hella interesting to watch. I got into a reality show recently called 60 Days In, which is like a prison reality show. And it's just like so high stakes because, like, you know, there's no tasks, but if you fuck them up, you get stabbed. And I'm like, why am I watching this? What kind of a sick person does it make me? So that's the way that people love a bad review, is that they love conflict, man. They look a little fucking Barney. Do you know what I mean?
So do you think maybe what I should do is kind reviews of the underground stuff that I enjoy, ignore the underground stuff I don't enjoy, and then just be fucking savage to all the established acts?
Yeah, like maybe just dump on Britney or the Twilight Sad once in a while.
Just go for someone who isn't just going to, who isn't going to care. You know, someone who's
Yeah.
just going to go, who the fuck are you? Well, maybe, but obviously, I'm aware that I don't want it to become too much of a thing. We've got, oh yes, RKC now. Lots of blogs reviews are just PR words, copying and
That
pasting.
is a fact. I write press releases, and the amount of times that somebody just prints the exact fucking press release, you would not.
You can
believe
tell it. You can see it.
Yep.
You can see it. You can just see that someone has copy and pasted that into a thing.
What's up?
It's a bit nasty.
Radio Chaos Caribou. That's where I have my hip hop show once a month.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And shouts to Radio Chaos as well, because they've always been a great
Let's give them a
supporter
shout.
of. And I don't even
You know
know how
what,
they initially
seriously
found out
rep
about us, but they've been
underground
supporting us for
music
ages.
Yeah, they rep underground music from all over the world. They're based in France, and they have an international listening base. And like basically, the reason Scottish hip hop gets played on there is that they had a DJ there who played it for years and years and years. And I think like some of the tunes got big enough that they got played on the other radio shows. So there's almost like a ready-made radio show audience for Scottish hip hop on Radio KC. I was lucky enough to get asked to host the show. So it's a once a month, hour-long showcase or thereabouts of hip hop, and we've had some great guests so far. This month coming up on I think it's the 29th of November, the last Sunday of the month. We've got Conscious Root. Last month was Russ Taylor and Tony Smoke. We've had Empress. We've had 1SP, Mugwumpers. You know, it's been a great opportunity to just sit down and have a chat with folk who are making hip hop in Scotland for all types of reasons and all types of motivations. And yeah, that's my favorite part of it. Really, is sitting down for a chat with people. But we also always play, you know, 15, 16 of the latest bangers. So yeah, if there are any Scottish hip hop artists watching, do send us your tracks. It's oldalliance@radiokc.fm, and you tune in at radiokc.fm 10 p.m. last Sunday of every month. Yeah, it's great fun.
Put that on the screen, and I'll put it in the comments.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a brilliant radio station. I've enjoyed over the years. It's
They
just
have everything
great.
on there,
It is.
like techno, folk music. Like it's a really diverse platform for loads of different music. So to represent Scottish hip hop on there is like a real privilege. We've had some 1 hour specials as well recently from Southside Deluxe, and This Is Not Pop, and we've got another one coming up from another label which I haven't announced yet. So yeah, if there's any labels out there watching this and you want to do a 1 hour special, do get in touch as well. We're super up for that too. So yeah, loads of opportunities, man, for Scottish artists.
Let's go to the comments. Talking about your last video, Belter said Celtic. A round of applause from Alan. Great video, says Suniva.
That's my mum. She's biased.
The Abbey at Equinox shoot we didn't use, so apparently we know the secret location. Got the Tam the Van. So maybe I don't know if that's true, but it might be true because it's Tam the Van. But if I remember rightly, Mackenzie filmed the Equinox video and we went to a place, but we didn't go to that place. So maybe that's true. It will be true.
That place is.
Well, Joe, I know where it is. I remember being there, but I don't actually remember the name of it. The name always escapes me.
But I don't want to tell too many people, and the reason is because
don't, man. Keep
right
it secret.
now it's pretty untagged, and like I don't mind places being tagged up. Like you go to St. Peter's Seminary and it's beautiful, all the tag work, right? But to be in a place like that hasn't been tagged is quite special and unique, you know. So that's one reason I'm not like telling everyone where it is. But also,
don't tell.
Like, see if you do want to make a video there, man. I mean, fuck, like we shot in like maybe 3 or 4 different setups in that place, and we ain't even like scratched the surface. Like things you can use to frame shots and stuff. Like it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I won't tell you where it is, but I will tell Mark.
Mr. Flibble says, "Here's my review of the music. Great."
Cheers, Mr. Flibble.
And there was also, earlier on, Anders says the Gilgamesh tablets were destroyed in the occupation of Iraq.
Yeah,
Earliest
so-
written story gone.
Anders is a man who knows a lot about this kind of era of history, and yeah, I've chatted to him before about the kind of lost knowledge of Sumeria and what it could possibly contain. Yeah, that's another internet wormhole for you guys to fall down. Look into ancient Sumer and the clay tablets there.
Cool. And is this when I was watching a couple of videos last night, Joe was asking me, is this anything to do with the Greys, or is that a completely different thing?
So the
what's the Greys? I've heard about the Greys. It's like, is that like what is it?
The whole theory of, like, you know, ancient astronaut theory, if we're going to get into that aspect of it, is essentially that the technology that built these ancient miracle wonder places, that the reason they have such strange properties, and the reason that the acoustic properties, the properties of the way they use light are the same in different locations, is that aliens came down and basically shared their technology in different locations with different cultures. That's why you have pyramids and different geographic locations. I mean, there's probably, for every reason that it could be aliens, there's a rational explanation that it's not, and it's a bit racist to think that it is. So beware of those kind of, you know, explanations of it. But in terms of, like, the reality of alien phenomenon, if we want to talk about that, fuck, man, I've seen a UFO. I ain't afraid to say that. But, you know, it's a question of, like,
What was that? What was that like? What was that like?
It was fucking crazy. I was 15 years old. We were staying in Bath, and it's like, Bath is quite. It's in the west country of England. It's quite a hot spot for UFO activity. There's also like a major, air base, like British Army air base there. So the idea that they could be flying experimental planes is not beyond the realms of possibility. The regularity of sightings of alien, you know, or unidentified craft there is quite regular. Also, the experience that we had was super like things that I subsequently read about, other things, and things, you know, that there's video of. So essentially, to give you the short version, it was like, you know, orange lights, and they kind of moved and changed formation in such a way that didn't look like, you know, I think we were sitting on some bleachers. It was a football field. We were staying at a university campus that was unoccupied for the summer. I think my friend's mom was teaching there or something. Anyway, we were there. We were just, like, sitting on the bleachers, probably smoking a joint, and watching these lights flicker on and off. And as we watched them, more of them were appearing, then they would flicker out, they would come into a formation of a triangle, and then break apart. And then at some point, a craft came literally above us, and it was in a football field, so it was like right above clear sky. This thing was not far above our heads. You know, this wasn't a low-flying aircraft. It was too low for us to mistake it for anything else. Like, we saw this disc, and it had kind of, you know, a ball, like a ball with a disc around it, and there were lights around the side, different colors, and you could kind of see windows as well in the shell very briefly at the point where it was closest to us, and it flew right the fuck over our heads, and we chased it. Like, we fucking ran after that thing, and at one point it just kind of went. You know, but to put it in context, like, I was diagnosed as bipolar when I was 15, and I didn't really, like, understand at that point about manic episodes. And part of manic episodes is, like, you get really, really hyper and into things, and that certainly, like, was the mood I was in that night. So who knows? Maybe I smoked a joint and convinced my friend that we saw a UFO. There's all types of reasons that I'm a fucking unbelievable witness, is what I'm saying. But I fucking saw that thing. I don't know if it was alien. I don't know.
Unbelievable witness is a good name for an. That's a good name for an EP. Unbelievable witness.
Absolutely. There's a line on the new EP, actually, like, we're all false prophets, failed seekers, unreliable narrators, relatable antagonists.
That we are. There's a lot of sort of the fact that how we remember things. We're very unreliable narrators, human beings, a species, especially when the longer time goes on.
Things, the more you kind of fictionalize it, the more you idealize it, probably the more details you add, the more you tell the story, the more specific it gets. You know, we're all prone to that shit. You know, in fact,
I can't wait till I'm in my
prone to it. Like, that is consciousness. That is what consciousness is.
I'll be remembering it in my old. I'll be in a old folks' home. And I'll be giving it all. During the lockdown, I won Scottish Album of the Year. That's how I remember it.
Well, listen, who's to disbelieve your narrative?
Who's to disbelieve
The
that?
end of the day.
Who does this? Is this what did your UFO look anything like these guys?
Yeah, it looked a fucking little bit like that, man. And I mean, I guess, that's another thing, like, we're talking about the acoustic levitation technology earlier was something that people laughed at. Now it's just a bit of science that's emerging. Is similarly the idea that there are very fast moving craft in our airspace, pretty fucking mainstream now and admitted by government agencies. What the fuck's going on with it? Nobody's prepared to say. I would not be surprised if next season on planet Earth, the aliens did come down or were like revealed to have been here all along. Like, it's been so fucking crazy and we're so near the brink of disaster. All of the people who believe in aliens among us or visiting us, a lot of them believe that it's some malign agenda where they're going to like take you and anal probe you and dissect you and all that stuff. But other people don't believe that. They believe that these guys are basically waiting to see if we blow ourselves the fuck up. And if we don't, then, that's good. And maybe we get to join like the equivalent of the Federation. Or maybe we blow ourselves the fuck up and they step in at the last minute and they're like, hold on, lads, you've actually got some pretty good civilization here. The other alternative, though, is that, they recognize that we are, as Bill Hicks said, a virus in fucking shoes. And they're standing by with the fucking death rays just because if we get off this planet, then we might infect some other fucking planets. And that could be like the worst deal. Like, humans could be the chlamydia of the universe for all we know. Like, people, like other star systems could have outbreaks of humans, and there could be like a whole class of aliens, let's say the Greys, whose job it is to like eliminate us like fucking cancerous blood cells.
The humans are a coronavirus.
Yeah. I mean, coronavirus, again, like people say, these conspiracies that it's a chance to get us to be vaccinated and they're going to put a chip in our blood. Like, first of all, that technology exists. Second of all, there are brilliant reasons to do it. Third of all, you're already carrying around a chip that fucking traces your every move. It's called your mobile phone. Like, so that's why I think it's like dangerous to discount anything from alien abductions to, I mean, obviously there are harmful conspiracies. Usually they lead back to some form of scientific racism or anti-Semitism. You have to be wary about what you believe, of course. But you also, shouldn't consider something implausible just because that's what you learned so far,
Do you think that it's worthwhile chipping everybody from a financial point of view?
Not until and unless we have global communism that works. The idea of a global society where everyone's equal, you could see how that could be like a benign panopticon. And I think recently, actually, Nick Bostrom, who's the physicist who came up with or theoretical scientist who came up with the idea of the simulation argument, that if we could build a sufficiently realistic simulation, it would be very difficult to disprove that we weren't in one, was his first kind of, thought experiment. And his most recent one was essentially saying that the stakes are so high for the human race that a completely benign, total surveillance society is the only thing that's going to enable us to meet those challenges. And he wasn't outright advocating that, because that's not what he does in these papers. What he was saying is that we fucked things up so badly that level of control might be necessary in some levels and in some aspects of our lives to fix things. And if you look at the response to the coronavirus in more authoritarian countries, they have been able to lock it down faster in a lot of situations like that. Whether that's a good thing or not, whether it's a good thing that people are prepared to submit to that level of surveillance and monitoring, I don't know. That's another debate. But it's, I don't know. Look, we already live in a kind of panopticon whereby you're always being watched, or, if not, then potentially you could be. So you have to behave as if you are being watched. And then we all voluntarily put ourselves in these virtual online spaces where we're like, watch me, like even right now, that's what you and I are doing. Watch us. And it's, so I think that's the awareness that I try and keep of it, is that we're already in that space. We're already in that space of like total surveillance. We're already in that space of total control. So all the parts of freedom that you can find in your life, whether that's like in your house with the doors closed and the police can't come in for whatever reason or another, we should be wary about anything that challenges that, for sure. I don't think that makes you like a conspiracy theorist to think that people shouldn't have some measure of privacy and autonomy and control, you know?
Absolutely. Well, if everyone's constantly being surveilled for surveillance all the time, does that tie in to the oversaturated for content? Too many channels?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think this goes back to the idea of scarcity, is that, you know, if it's a big competition for numbers, and if what gets the big numbers is stuff that's similar to what's already getting the big numbers until it doesn't, and then that thing's fucked, and then it's on to the next thing. And if like all of the people trying to make it in the underground are constantly being like hoping that they'll get tapped up by someone on the next level, and then their thing will become the new thing, like that's a big capitalist cycle. So as an artist, if you're going to say, okay, I'm going to make myself scarce, I'm going to camouflage some of my stuff, I'm going to make it harder to access, not in a like you pay me and you access it way like we were talking about with, you know, exclusive content, but just being like, you know where it is, come find it. And, you know, that's a challenge for me. That's a real challenge. That's actually an exciting space for me to think about existing in. Terrifying, because I've mediated myself as an artist through social media for 10 years. I've been on Facebook 10 years. But I don't think that there's been a huge return on that for me in terms of like my happiness or the investedness of my audience. So I want to try some different shit for that, you know?
What about the guy you were talking about earlier on who does that well? You didn't say his name. Is it that secret?
He's no secret. I mean, he's more of a, you know, basically. Like
You're still not telling me the name. Is he a secret? So, no, he's not a secret. You just need. Can we tell his name? Is it?
No, I can tell you his name. His name is Stranded. But you know, you might find it difficult to find him just off the back of that. So I'll maybe send you a few links to some stuff he's done. But yeah, again, he's like, he did have one tape where I got a message about it from somebody else who's like a proper lyrics head, and he was just like, please only share this link with people that will get it. And I just thought, fuck me, that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do with my music. How amazing is that? Just because it was the opposite. I just thought, fuck, it's actually brilliant. Do you know what I mean?
Anti-promo.
Yeah. Anti-pop.
Social media can be a brutal minefield, says Mr. Flibble.
It can, especially for people who've got mental health issues. I think it's like a horrible, distorting lens of narcissism that makes you view yourself and other people in quite a fucked up way, you know, sometimes.
And everybody, I suppose the problem is, well, that I find as well is like people are always announcing things, like they're announcing exciting news, good news, they've got a new album coming out and stuff like that, which is great. But then there's also people that just moan about all the stuff all the time. But you don't want to be the guy that's bragging all the time or the guy that's moaning all the time. So sometimes you've got to sneak a moan in there to even up all the. Otherwise, you're just going to come across as look at, isn't everything brilliant? Look what's happening to me. And I think that's the problem. Is a lot of people don't want to moan on social media. You don't want to moan because that puts nobody wants to read people moaning that way.
I tried just posting about music, like posting only music, other people's music and my music, and that's it. But even that's just like it's the spectating. Like, see if you're not actively trying to be yourself, like in any real fundamental way. You're not giving your opinions. You're not saying how your day was. You're not sharing pictures of your cat. You're just there for putting out music and stuff. Even that, like, you just see other people's lives going by. You see other people mediating themselves through this space, and it's almost more lonely to be there and spectate on it and not participate, because you realize the loneliness that goes into the need to mediate yourself through that. And I'm not saying loneliness like nobody who's got social media and uses it a lot doesn't have real friends, because obviously that's not fucking true. Just saying that, like, it encourages this weird narcissistic bubble where you're like sitting alone and you think, oh, you know what, I'm gonna rate my life for an audience, and then you check to see if the audience has reacted, and they don't, or they react the wrong way, or it starts some shit, or you're misunderstood. All of that's just like, I don't even have words, Mark. I'm like so over it that I'm just like
done.
Yeah.
Everyone's just going to have deleted their social media by the end of the show. We've got Angela says absolutely horrible lens. Mr. Flibble, social media gives rise to cults like QAnon. Well, everybody wants to be part of a tribe. So I suppose things like QAnon, it's like just somewhere for people to be.
QAnon is fascinating
Chlamydia.
to me.
Sorry, on you go, man.
QAnon's fascinating to me because it's less like a conspiracy and more like a massively multiplayer augmented reality game where there's almost the aim of like finding out the new drop, decoding the information, connecting the dots. That's why you have all these guys going on YouTube to read all this shit and then connect it all. So it's like happening in real time and nobody knows who Q is. Like if you go back to the ARGs, the original ARGs, that they always had that central mystery that everyone's going to trying to solve. Like where did this person go? Or what's this person's real identity? So it looks a lot more like a massive game that people are playing. But then the real world consequences explode into real world violence. And the consequences of people believing that it's not a game, even though it's gamified, are very scary because it radicalizes people because it's addictive like a game and it sucks you in. And it's this concept of like if you see the QAnon fuckers being interviewed, these cunts are always like, oh, but I do my research, and the research is watching these fucking YouTube videos and reading these forum posts, and so that's all really scary.
I think there's that meme of Ralph Wiggum where it's like I'm a researcher and it's typed in to go what I want to believe. So and I think there's a lot of that happening where people are researching.
It's true. And most cults are like personality driven, they're built around like a single person and their charisma. Whereas QAnon is, as much as it is built around the mystery of who is Q, it's also just built around this toxic scaffolding of the worst fucking like racist, nasty bullshit. So it's a very scary game. Very scary.
Mr. Flubble says they think Trump is Q and Alex Jones is to blame for QAnon.
Certainly part of the problem.
I saw a crazy thing in LA. It morphed into many things mental, and I was not even high. And I mean, I quite like the idea of aliens because I think like season, this is what someone was saying that the election was like the end of season 2, so it'll be the start of season 3 next year. Trump goes out, new guy comes in. Season 3 of Earth, whatever it is. And I love the idea that aliens could come down.
The cliffhanger is the aliens come down, man.
The aliens,
District 9
I mean, I think it'd be. I would have been ruling that out a year ago, but I think it'd be mental to rule anything out at this stage. So who knows? But I think that the UFO means an unidentified object. So you've got so much things like the weapons or secret planes. Because I mean, if you think about the technology that we know of, that all the major superpowers have, and then obviously you would assume that we must be about 20 years behind what actually does exist.
Yeah.
So those floating things that we see in the sky, these crafts could just be some advanced weaponry or some advanced.
The question there, though, that the UFO guys would have is how did it advance? So like the leap from, let's say, like your biggest commercial jet engine, or even like your fastest fighter that was available at the time, I think like was the F-1 Harrier jump jet, which can do full vertical takeoff and take off from an aircraft carrier and then take some missiles and goes about fucking however many Mach or whatever. That's quite like that was the extent of our technology. And then we had the fucking stealth bomber. Like the difference between that is almost like the difference between a wagon and a fucking steam train. So there as much as the accounts of alien abduction or seeing UFOs or whatever, you can explain it away as like weapons tests or even technology. The question is, where does the technology come from? Aliens, bro.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. Petra says my new tune is called Ancients and Aliens. I made a video for it. Can you play it next week?
Petra. I'll definitely.
Absolutely. Definitely, Petra. In fact, I'm going to try and get a wee Friday night phone in because I feel like I've not been chatting. I feel like I've been away for a while because of a few days off. So we'll do a Friday night phone in and we can play some new tunes because there was loads of new music came out last week. I think at Halloween.
Time for music, yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to just catch up with that and just do a show where we'll get some people to phone in and I'll share some new tunes that I've came across. Mr. Flibble said, what's the point in a superliminal, ultra-advanced alien racer arriving at Earth, making a pyramid, a thing with no benefit or purpose to anything for anything, and then fucking off afterwards?
Those are the
but is there no benefit? Who's saying there's no benefit?
Those are the kind of questions.
Who's saying there is no benefit? Because I think, Bram, you're saying it's a technology that we don't understand. The fact that there's all these, it's scaled to the universe, and there's illusions. Did you say?
So, like, the other thing is, like, we only recently understood exactly how the cladding on the edge of the pyramids would work. But essentially, a lot of people think that there was enough energy being drawn from the motion of the water coming into chambers underneath the pyramid to generate, like, a resonant field that would have lit up the outside or the top of the pyramid. You know, we just don't really have all the pieces of why they built that, what it was for. The big theory about the Grand Pyramid is that it was a tomb, but there's very little in the way of hieroglyphics in there. They didn't find any mummies in there. Like, obviously, a lot of stuff got robbed from it. But yeah, all of the exterior of that thing is gone. We don't know how it looked. We don't know what it was for. I think it might well be excessive to say, well, then aliens definitely built it. But it bears looking at the pieces that we do know and the pieces that we don't, the different ways that those could be interpreted. So that's my take on it. As to why they build it and fuck off, who knows? I mean, for that, I'd say we have a lot of stories in our culture of people coming down from the sky and fighting wars and briefly guiding our civilizations and then leaving. That's a motif that recurs.
Taggers.
Maybe
they're just taggers. It's their equivalent of tagging. They just leave a few pyramids. Or maybe we're going to find out. We're talking last night with Israel about they're building a motorway next to Stonehenge. Maybe what's going to happen is some builders going to find a magic wand of some sort, and then if you put that magic wand on the pyramids, it electrifies everything, and then something good happens. Maybe the cure for the virus.
The thing about driving that tunnel underneath Stonehenge or even near it, we don't care about the past, really. Like, if we cared about the past, then the place where the most ancient civilization on record exists wouldn't be a war zone right now. If we cared about the past, then we would be looking for the earlier parts of our civilization and taking seriously the stories that come from civilizations like the Aborigines, whose oral history extends like 10,000 years. It goes back to the last ice age. We don't listen to those voices in our culture. Like, even the religions that were born out of the period of slave trade, where you have things like voodoo being born out of meldings of Christianity and African traditions. Even those things are disappearing from the world, or are seen as they should be occulted, hidden. That's really sad. I think that we want to consign these things as like relics of a pre-rational world. I don't know. I don't think they're worth putting aside quite so fast.
Sheck Watson says it's a petrified giant Toblerone. Petra says John Lennon saw a UFO in New York in 1974. That's what my new tune is dedicated to.
Petra's repping UFOs in the music. I like that.
I've had a crazy alien experience too, but no one believes me or just laugh and say I'm mad.
I believe you, Angela.
I believe you, Angela. We'd like to hear more about that. Maybe you could phone up the Friday night phone in next week, Angela, and tell us a little bit more about it. We're going to wrap things up just now. Bram, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
I've enjoyed it, Mike. Thank you.
We've done 2 hours and a quarter. That flew by, man. That flew by.
Shit, yeah.
We've got, so for anyone who wants to support Bram's stuff, the Texture Shopping Network is texture.bandcamp.com.
That's right.
Get a t-shirt, support the forthcoming album, and get the t-shirt. Will make more amazing music videos like the one we've seen earlier on. For anyone who wants to support You Call That Radio, we're trying to get up to 200 patrons so that we can do the Christmas special. So go to patreon.com / You Call That Radio, or you can make a donation at PayPal. In fact, actually, shout outs to I've got a couple of new patrons recently, so I just want to shout them out. That was Bonnie Prince Bob. That he's actually our highest ever viewed interview on YouTube from last month. Discontent, check out Discontent, Bonnie Prince Bob. Shouts to Tracy Phillips, Ross, Anna, and Ian, who have all signed up in November. It's much appreciated, helping us build the thing. Great show again, says Lee. Great show, Mr. Flibble. I missed it, Sheck. You can watch it. It's going to be on YouTube. We haven't manufactured the scarcity of this show. It'll be on YouTube for a wee while longer. Petrus is the best chat. Great show. Thank you, says Mickey Mouse. Great
Thanks
show.
everyone for listening.
Also, Teeth said something earlier on. I missed. What was it? A glorious tidal wave of negative energy. I think that would have been. Is that one of your lines?
No. That's just like I think like Mark expressing his romantic appreciation for me. So, you know.
Hey, wait, what song we're going to finish on? You've got loads of tunes. We've got on YouTube. Are we going to finish with 3DI? We're going to finish with RoboCop. Are we going to finish with?
Yeah, let's get
Black
3DI
Parade?
on, man. 3DI is me and Asmac Astronaut shot this in our bedrooms on lockdown, basically. So it's quite lo-fi. But the tune is a banger. Basically wrote this over a beat that a friend of mine made that was like a flip of a Smashing Pumpkins sample, but then we never got that beat finished. So I just sent the acapella to G, and he wrote the beat, and it's one of my faves of his. This tune probably goes a bit harder than I usually go. So yeah, enjoy.
Tam the Van says thanks for being in the garden. And well, thanks for having us in the garden. Kelty, can I just make a suggestion again for Patreon? Some Tasteful Nudes is an exclusive
Nathan,
for
you're
the higher
rock
tier
set.
members. We'll be winner. Yeah, you said something about OnlyFans. Do you know what? This is how naive I am. When I started the Patreon idea, I was like, well, Patrons, if that's the most famous one, they're probably the bad guys. Let's see what the competition's like. And at that point, I looked into OnlyFans, and the way that people were making it out was, I don't think it was as big back then. This is about a year and a half ago. So it was like, they were making it like, some people use it for adult content.
Yeah.
But it's like, it didn't have the sort of stigma or the stereotype
totally
attached to it now.
that, yeah.
So I nearly did have an OnlyFans, and now it's like...
you missed out on the Tasteful Nudes. You see, Nathan?
I missed out.
Is
You missed out on
OnlyFans
Tasteful Nudes,
down?
but we'll see. We'll see what 2021 brings, though. You never know. Why did they say that the Egyptian god Thoth is the creator of writing when they stole language from the Sumer culture?
Well, interesting.
Do you want to take that?
I mean, the thing about Thoth is that he's an amalgamation, I think, of several Sumerian figures as well. I mean, that's the interesting thing about culture, and it also gives the lie to the idea, this nativist idea that we talked about earlier of identitarianism and sectioning up cultures and putting up borders, is that nearly every culture has got echoes and imitations of the guys next to it. And as soon as shipping became a thing, that just exploded. And there are more parallels than we think, between cultures and their stories. That Joseph Campbell famously thought that there were 7 basic plots to every story, and these were shared in every religious text and every fairy tale and every story ever
And every
written.
film.
Yeah, in every film. I think the Bible for film cliches is called Save the Cat or something like that. It's a really good one. So anyway, like, these patterns are universal, and they are our heritage, and they are like totally global, universal, belong to everybody. So yeah, that's my belief really, is that human beings are storytelling. So that's why Thoth was stolen, is that everything's stolen. Culture is imitation. And that's why I think, it's difficult to talk about appropriation. Obviously, things can be, somebody can buy your style. Somebody can take your shit and put it in a context which makes it fucking look like shit. That's a thing. But I think, there's absolutely no shame in influence. There's a really good essay actually called The Anxiety of Influence by Jonathan Lethem, which talks about how influence works in culture. And it's all written in stolen quotes. Every single word of it is a quotation from something else. So yeah, that's a good one to check out.
The anxiety of influence.
Yeah, Jonathan Lethem, I think that's right. I hope that's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Have you got in fact, my final question would be any audio books that you'd recommend, because I'm trying to do a bit of cycling, and audio books is my way. It's probably my way that I actually just
all the way podcast, man, to be honest. Podcast wise, like, you've got to check out
podcast is fine.
Team Human, Doug Rushkoff's podcast. He writes about the future and technology, and he just interviews some amazing people. I also really love Adam Buxton. Shouts to Morphamish for recommending that one to me. Adam Buxton He doesn't just interview comedians. The comedian interviews are great too, but he interviews some really, really just fascinating scientists and people like that. I think the podcast I'm trying to start is very like I try to follow the Adam Buxton model. Well,
have you got a date? Have you got a date?
Too.
Got a date for that?
Just look for it, I guess, towards the middle to end of December. Is about as specific as I'm going to be. But yeah, it's called Strange Exiles. Follow us on Twitter at Strange.
Have you got it distributed? Have you got a distribution thing?
You know what? I'm using Anchor, which is the new one for that Spotify have got, but it puts it on Apple and Deezer and all that stuff, so it should be real easy to find, hopefully. But yeah, Anchor is really good. Obviously, Spotify's evil, but Anchor's a good bit of kit.
I'll definitely give a shout out to that. Poverty Safari was on audiobook. I'm trying to get that. I actually read Poverty Safari before it came out. I was lucky to have a wee advance read of that. But I just think I find
the audiobook.
I think he's read the audiobook. I've not heard the audiobook, but I think he did. Yeah, I think you've got to. When you've got someone like Dan, it's got to be Dan, isn't it? So maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I just don't. It takes me ages to get round to reading a book. I never have time. But if I combine audiobook with cycling, then we're on to a winner. So anyone's got any audiobook suggest or podcast, let me know. And thanks to everyone who's tuned in. The Countercast podcast. The podcast is called Strange Exiles. That's correct.
That's right, Strange Exiles. Yeah.
We're going to thank you so much, Bram. Pleasure as always. Maybe get you back on once the podcast is up and running.
Magic,
or you've got the new album out or something. This is 3DI, and thanks everyone who's tuned in. Support the Texas Shopping Network.
Everybody.
Support the You Call That Radio Shopping Network too.
Thanks so much.
See you later, man.
Texture. And so I lift my gaze beyond this horizon, and the walls come down. Suddenly the world goes silent. What if none of this violence touched my timeline? Third eye blindness. Didn't want to write this verse. Already seen that fallout. I couldn't even think these words. Thought crime's gonna get called out. I feel too much. Shudder when I spit these bars out. I didn't even want these visions. I didn't want to smash these prisms. I don't give a fuck about your psychology. Lost ontologies, ideologies. Call them prophets or call them prodigies. They're just dead gods to me. And if it's all too fast, we can slow it down, just ask us. But if you're scared of the past, you don't want to know these answers. Look in that glass, future gets darker, faster. Call me Cassandra, want a bleak take man, I'm a past master. Want a quick death, just ask her. I could run miles in the dark through levels of a hellscape just to burst faster. Foul hex caster, raised by devils in the depths. Every little thought is restless. His head came to rest and the body went breathless. Rain came down as the cops came to arrest us. Now he rests in peace, talks to me when I sleep. Figures in my past like shadows, buried in the ground like barrels. 6 feet down where the sound is hollow, hallowed. Hard time living in the narrows. Sparrows without wings drown in the shallows. Hanging from the gallows, pale yellow palace in the shadow. There's no light where I'm from. Rally around a black hole sun. The creed we teach says reach for extinction. Bleak heat creeps to this leech in your thinking. Curled in the bottom of the bottle that you're drinking. We signed the in blood. Didn't even clean that blade off. Drops of rust in a flood beneath the place where you take off. That's just rain washed down from the pavement into the drains, love. That's just rain, but it's sacred. I sing to you in this weather. Half past never. Cause that terror to my chest. Always keep a third eye open. Didn't have to leave me broken. Heart's gone cold, but my mind stays open. When the ferryman comes, I'll give him your token. So I lift my gaze beyond this horizon. And as the walls come down, suddenly the world goes silent.
Brothers and sisters, may the peace that can only come from the one God be upon you. We are here to tell the people that we hear you. One God will not allow us as people of conscience to lose our morale.
Powered by our patrons. We are indeed powered by our Patreons. Thanks to everyone supporting us over there. Just a wee shout out to remind you about tomorrow. Tomorrow we have an absolute legend, Grieger. in the house, man. He's part of Afro Celt sound system. He's an accomplished musician. He can play a bit of everything. Does a lot of Scottish trad stuff, but brings it into with a modern edge. He does loads of amazing Gaelic hip hop type stuff. Proper legend, Scottish trad musician of the year as well. So really excited to be speaking to him tomorrow night, 7:00. And we're here most nights at 7:00. Monday, we've got Kat Hepburn and Kevin P. Gilday of Sonic Youth. And I think we'll be doing a wee bonus episode over the weekend as well. So, yeah, cheers, guys. Thank you to Bram. Check out his stuff on texture.bandcamp.com. And we will see you tomorrow.
Brothers and sisters.
Is that you, Daniel? Are you before me?
You call that radio?
Hello? Yes, this is Dog.
Call that radio!